Alright, King Killers, in this episode we cover chapters 15 through 17. We start by explaining what we think deer hunters must be doing up in their stands, talk about Ben suspiciously dipping out before the hammer drops, and guess at what the masters must really think of old Benny Boy. Then we discuss why I'm pounding Pepto Bismol, the similarities between Sir Savien, Arliden's song, and Lanre and Lyra, and some troubling realities when I think about the multiverse. Finally, we cover why mass-murdering psychopaths are probably unlikely heroes, learn more about the Chandrian, the Amyr, the singers, the Sythe, and we somehow find a way to make the story about strip clubs again. But we find out where Fitz's animosity from them comes from, so it's definitely worth it. So sit back and enjoy.
All right, killers, welcome back to the 6th installment of the supremely dominant and utmost killer broadcast, King Killer Podcast. Tonight's show will be hosted by myself, Fitz Fawn 1, Tim Buck 2, and Dan Doe 3. How you doing, guys?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
Dan Doe
right.
3.
I don't really get that one, but it's not too bad.
It's a play
I'll
on
take
words,
that.
Tim. Tim Buck 2, Fitz
I get that.
Fawn 1, Dan the Doe 3.
Ah.
I don't
I
get
get
the
it
Doe,
now.
though. Doe 3.
You're a girl. That's why you're a girl, dear. Tim's Tim Buck, and I'm
the
Fitz
Buck.
Fawn, the newcomer, and you're a girl.
Huh.
Can we add a
They're
laugh
always
track
better.
or anything?
They're always better when you have to explain them, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that the rule? When you have to
I
explain
think-
the joke, and they're about...
Jokes really don't land unless you explain them, I found in my experience.
The truth is, the jokes always land in my head before, and then as I'm reading them to you guys, I'm like, these guys aren't going to think this is funny, damn it. Failed
You're right, though.
again.
But you should feel good about the fact that
that's
you were
funny.
right.
See, right there, that was hilarious.
Yeah, when I write them, I'm like, these guys, they're going to appreciate this one. Finally, I'm going to get them with this one. Nope.
No, that's a good one for the deer stand, because you won't get a loud laugh, and it'll still be quiet,
There you
Go
go.
right- It's
Good
gonna
idea.
be a big one for our deer hunting audience.
Yeah, they'll
A
get it.
lot of deer hunters in our audience. They got a lot of time. They read a lot of books in their deer stands.
Is that, I don't know what else they do, like sitting
I think
up
you
there all
look.
day.
I think you need to be looking at things.
You
Gotta
just look.
Keep your eyes peeled. I don't know. I've never been in a deer stand, but I imagine you're covering yourself with deer piss, and you're just keeping your eyes open.
Yep.
Sounds like
Kicking
a
back.
long day.
Yep. Just smearing deer piss all over yourself.
All right, on that note, let's get started. Chapter 15 is called Distractions and Farewells. The troop stops in a town called Hallowfell, where Ben meets a widow and decides to marry her. They throw a dual going-away party for Ben and birthday party for Kvothe, who's turning 12. The troop performs. Arliden and Lorien sing the lay of Sir Savien Traileyard, and Kvothe cries like a little bitch. Afterwards, everyone talks Arliden into singing a verse about his new song. From his new song about Lanre. After that, the troop dances, and Kvothe says goodbye to Abinthy. In the morning, Kvothe finds that Ben has left him a gift, a book called Rhetoric and Logic, with a note inside. And again, Kvothe cries like a little bitch. Guys?
Yeah, the first thing on it is Ben getting with this lady, because Rothfuss, as he's wont to do, he writes it in a way where he gives plausible explanation on the surface, but when you kind of dig in deeper, it leaves a lot of question marks, because it's very plausible that he would meet a widow. He gets a nice little young piece, and he would dip out with her because she's got her brewery and he's a brewer. So, it makes perfect sense that he would leave the group to get with her.
Yeah,
But
it's
when
like
you
a
tie it together
perfect-
with everything else, that's what makes it suspicious. That he fucking dipped out right before they get killed. Kavoth almost killed himself not long ago with the stuff he's taught him, because of the massive hole that Rothfuss left in the book. So there's, there's a lot of reason to doubt Ben and his motives and why he actually left.
For the reader, it feels like it's right after that happened with Kavoth, and it's right before his family dies.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. I know it's not actually, but it feels like that. But it is a perfect trap, or, it's a perfect snare set for Ben. He's a brewer. Nice, like you said, nice, young, sounds attractive, and she has a brewery. All he has to do is run it properly, which she can't do. So, I mean, it's pretty perfect lining all that in together. So, yeah, it's a great alibi. But situationally, in terms of the, chronological timing of this, it's very suspicious.
Yeah, my first time going through, I definitely did not pick up on the suspicious part. I was pissed off that Abinthy was, discontinuing his teachings. On a second read through, though, I did pick up that Kavoth specifically calls it a trap. Did you guys catch that? He says he calls it the perfect trap for Ben, and it's the same reasons why you said, Tim. But he actually calls it a trap.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, and
well,
so, I think he says like it was a perfect snare or something like that.
Yeah,
but
okay.
it's
that's
but
funny. That's what I said.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's very plausible. It's very plausible that she would come in and this would just be, it's just everything is just a matter of coincidences. It's just the sheer number of coincidences that surround Ben that make me doubt that Rothfuss wrote it in a way where, all these things just, the stars align perfectly where Ben happened to come upon them. Ben was broke and down and out for some reason that we don't know. And he teaches him all these things that are going to send him down a path that's going to change his life, and that he gets out right before the Chandrian come and wipe him out. I mean, it's not right before. I think it's like half a year.
But it feels like that.
Still.
Well, it's interesting. Like Fitz said, on my first read through, I remember it feeling sudden and very surprising. And then, in retrospect, he becomes the catalyst. Without Ben, none of this goes where it goes, and without him leaving, none of it goes where it goes. Right? Yeah. I mean, who knows? If he was there, would it play out differently? Maybe in some way, but I don't think he's wiping out Cinder, and a few others. Especially not with the mighty, great, powerful Grey Dalcinti just taking control over him.
Yeah,
no, and just wheeled him around like a
Grey Dalcinti.
No. So
he could have got the rest of them, but not old Grey.
No.
So
no, he'd be back there just busting cigs, fucking scaring the shit out of Ben.
Just looking at people. I love that picture. Like he's got a cig between the fingers. He just kind of points at people, points them out. A lot of head nods.
Yeah. Ben calls the name of the wind. He fucking blows it back in his face as he blows out of the puff of a cigarette smoke. Just fucking.
But yeah, but I mean, yeah, I mean, on further read-throughs, it is, Ben's, this whole situation is the catalyst. And it does, and we've talked about that, it begs the question of, so who is Ben? What is his background? What is his future? What part does he ultimately play? Because we know what part he plays because of what he builds in, and then what comes because he's gone. It's very, very suspicious.
Yeah, obviously, we'll find out in book 3 because if he comes back, it's only one of two things can happen. It's either just like a reunion and they just kind of come upon each other, or it's going to be a revelation. I mean, it can't be. It's got to be one of those two where it's just like a chance, like, oh shit, Ben, you don't know what the fuck's happened to me, and it's a reunion thing, or it's Ben fucking steps back in at the opportune time to help him do something. But if
And we
he's
can
not in
hash
the book at all, then we can just kind of fucking toss all this shit away. And Rothfuss just wrote it in a way where there's a lot of reasons to doubt Ben, but we'll never get any answers.
I would guess that Ben is going to play a big part in the turning point of book 3. Seems that way anyway, or make his presence known again. I was thinking about the possibilities, and I can't get far because I don't know a lot of the theories and stuff. But pointing out that Ben put Ben put Kavoth on his arc, towards the university and his learning and everything else. You have to look at it as if you're trying to figure out why he leaves. Is he a good guy or a bad guy? Did he set Kavoth on his arc for nefarious purposes or for heroic purposes? And what that would lead to, I know we've talked about, or at least we talk about in future episodes, but why he would leave could be, one, to stay out of the way of the Chandrian, knowing that they're coming. 2, having known that he put them on the path to the Chandrian. If he did, maybe he mentioned something more than we picked up on when he was talking to Arliden and Kavoth's mom. Anyway, I don't know, guys. Like I said, I don't know a lot of the theories, but the questions bounce around in my head because he leaves so suddenly.
It's interesting that Rothfuss chose to have Kavoth's teacher be somebody that when Kavoth goes to university and drops his name, nobody says anything, right? It's not a guy that like loomed large there or had like a reputation. That at least that didn't come up, That's kind of interesting. That's an interesting choice because then he is more of not suspicious, but like a shadowy figure. We know less about him. We know less about his history, where he's from, why he is where he is. I mean, and that's kind of, again, the part that Dan brought up that's really important to, I think, look at is this, a guy with this much in terms of abilities, what he can offer, what he could do, and then he's just like penniless on the road. Like, what's, again, it's all like, what's he doing here?
Yeah, he's not an idiot either. I mean, it's not like he's a bad, a stupid person or.
Well, and it didn't seem like he's running
not
from
creative
anything either.
Or he's got some entrepreneurial aspects to him, like with that it was his whole thing with like getting with the group. He's like, hey, I can fucking.
He offers all these practical. He offers all these practical utilities that he can provide for them. So clearly he could do that in all these other different types of capacities, rolling through any town and probably just plant there and provide all these things. Right, that one town where the Kavoth takes back the 2 girls. I mean, they had one woman that was actually like a really good, she knew her medical stuff, but that was one person.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have to think there's many towns that Abinthy could just post up in and live the rest of his life out if he wanted to. But instead he's on the road, so that's what I was about to say is I don't get the feeling that he's running away from something.
No,
he it didn't seem like he was on high. Yeah, it didn't seem like he was hiding. So
yeah, so
you brought up an interesting. You brought up an interesting point, Tim. Though that because I remember being surprised when Kavoth name dropped Abinthy, and nobody knew who he was, or no one acted like they knew who he was.
You assume they know him because otherwise they would have been, like, who the fuck's that dude?
No, but what I find interesting about that is that Rothfuss chose to not have them say anything.
Yeah.
To not, because he keeps that away from us.
They all just rolled their eyes. That guy. Like, let me guess. He ended up like a bum just wandering the fucking roads like a fucking jackass.
That answer,
crazy Ben.
That answers all those questions. Let me guess. Like, he was like this? He was like, no eyebrows?
No eyebrows? No eyebrows, Ben? Yeah, I know no eyebrows.
Oh, yeah, Benny No Brow? Yeah, we know Benny No Brow.
Yeah, no, that's pretty. I mean, and that speaks to Rothfuss seems very cognizant of what I mean, it makes sense, of what he allows the audience to, or the readers to know, what they don't know, and what they end up realizing that they don't know, and can hash it out like this, where there's so much suspicion around him. That's not an accident, right? I mean, one would think he wouldn't just, that he created this character and had him dip out when he did, and think no one's going to think, this was suspicious. There's no way.
Yeah, it's definitely suspicious.
Yeah, he's a mystery. But then moving into the other parts of the chapter, we run into Shandy giving Kvothe a cloak. So we get his first mention of his little nerdy cloaks that he's obsessed with.
With pockets.
Yeah, a lot of pockets for boys' treasures. Then his parents give him a loot. But what's kind of interesting is, obviously, he talks about the loot. I mean, not the loot. He talks about the cloak. Part of the reason he was into cloaks was because of Tamerlane the Great and the stories he heard about him. So he was that, being a young boy is kind of like a superhero thing. The superhero's got a cloak. But like the loot that he gets from his parents, the cloak, like these are two extremely prominent things that play into his life. He's obsessed with these things as, he starts to become an adult. And I think a part of it could be, that these were like the last gifts that he received from his crew before they all got fucking wiped out. And so he doesn't ever mention it. But I think that, similar to how his dad hates poets, it's mentioned in these early chapters that his dad hates poets. And then through the rest of the book, he has a hatred for poets. And I think a lot of these traits Rothfuss wrote in to kind of build out Kvothe's personality without actually spelling out why they're so important. But I do think they're important because of where they came from, and that these things happening at this point in his life, right before his, all these people get murked. I think that's why a lot of these things stick with him as he gets older.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely.
I mean, it's a nice sort of more subtle way to deliver that character development.
Yeah, despite the his love for the loot and the, I don't know, how utilitarian the cloak is for him, it's definitely anchored in his, this is the last thing he got before everybody he's ever loved and known is dead. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I would have to think, I mean, people develop their identity and they have these little things that become, in their mind projects outward who they are. I mean, for him, you would have to think that'd be even more like meaningful, because that's all he's got, man. He doesn't have people that know him. So his identity, I mean, what he walks around with, this person that he's becoming, that's the only thing he has to hold on to. That is his past.
Even looking at like the lay of Sir Savien Treliard, that's the song they sing here that he hears, at the last fucking big hurrah before Ben dips out. And this is the song he's going to sing at the Aeolian to win his pipes. You have just so much of the stuff that happens to him in these early chapters as he's a youth. Like for his music, for example, he's obsessed with music. He needs it to survive, but you don't get that when he's hanging out with Ben. You don't get that music is massively important to him. Like he never talks about that, when he's like 11, 12 years old. There's no mention of how important his music is. But once his parents are murked, and then he goes and he plays, music to kind of soothe his soul to forget. For the rest of the book, music is massively important. The rest of the book, the lay of Sir Savien plays a big importance. Cloaks play a big importance. What was the other gift? The loot. I mean, the loot is obviously massively important. All these things like that happen in his youth. He doesn't like talk about them in the opening. Like I'm obsessed with. As a kid, I was obsessed with music. I couldn't fucking go a day without playing it. It was just there. It wasn't a big thing. It's later where he's just like, he can't fathom not having music around him. And so it could be that it's just, he had it, so he was used to it, so he wasn't thinking about it. When it was only until he lost it that he appreciated it. But it also could be that the reason he's obsessed with it is because, he got killed, and these are the things that he hangs on to that, remind him of his troop.
It does also seem to be like he has like a meditative experience when he plays music. It keeps him like sane. It seems to have that effect on him. It also, it's also who he is. And one thing that always reminds us is he always reminds the reader, I am a Dimaru. And because I'm a Dimaru, this is the way I act. And this is the abilities I have. Like he always comes back to that. That's always defining him in situations throughout the books. But actually, well, there was something that kind of jumped out in my mind that then, I don't know, as we were talking about, it kind of in a way sort of bothers me, where I know he's really heated when he's on the horns, but when Lauren mentions, Arliden the Bard, like he knows his dad. Mm-hmm. And I know Kavos really heated, and like it's not the time that he's going to have a conversation about it, so he just snips at him. But one would think, I would think, he doesn't. What else? There's no one else that knows who his father is, apparently, and there's this one guy that made it clear that he knows who he is. Wouldn't you think he'd want to talk to him about him at some point? Like, I know it's not like literally, it's not that accessible. He can't just walk up to him like he can Anchor or somebody, or like Kilvin or somebody, but I would think at some point he would find a reason to go out of his way to then actually bring it up.
Well, that would go against who he's become. He goes out of his way to not talk about them. So you would think he would do everything in his power to avoid that topic with Lauren. Like, he literally, doesn't talk about it with anybody. So if one person knew about him, he'd be like, yeah, avoid that motherfucker. That guy's going to dig into the shit that's going to fucking break me apart.
I can see that. I can also see Tim's point, because he's, he makes, nobody else knows him. Nobody else knows his dad or his family or his troop. And so, talking to someone that doesn't have any idea about it, yeah, I can see why I wouldn't want to bring up bad memories about that. But someone who might be able to give you some insight into your dad, having known him, that might be somewhat appealing.
Yeah,
that may be appealing to overcome the bad memories. But then again, he doesn't have a good relationship with Lauren throughout the two books. He doesn't have the opportunity.
In my mind, partially, I could see it being easier because Lauren, he's literally not an emotional. He's the least emotional person in the books. We see points of how non-emotional the guy is. Now, Kavoth does have problems with him that he's created on his own as well, so he has to tread lightly anyway. But I don't know, maybe what I'm considering is maybe when he's 20, maybe when he's a little bit older, maybe book 3, who knows? But I think it would happen eventually that he would be curious enough to want to know more at some point. But I don't know, it just popped in my mind. I hadn't considered it before, so
I don't think he's gonna want to talk about his dad until he's willing to tell someone about his family getting murdered. I don't think
until he's able to.
I don't think.
Well, now he's able to do that.
Until
he did it here.
He can't tell.
So it's book 4.
Tell Denna it. He won't tell Will and Sim it. So until he tells someone, he's not going to fucking dive into his. He's not going to want to dive into the past of his parents or anyone who might have known him. And it's not like I don't think it would be abnormal for someone to know Arliden. He was a famous bard, a famous, Edema Rue. It's he had songs that traveled the world and that are known. Like I'll discuss in that episode when Arliden comes to him, Rothfuss has told us that what Lauren was going to ask him was, hey, I got a bunch of these songs. Can you, your dad was a famous trooper, some of these songs might be his. Can you help me catalog some of these songs that aren't attributed to anybody? Maybe who, which ones would be your father's. And so that's what he was going to ask him before Kavoth did his little hissy fit, and then he never asked him about it. So we know what Master Lauren was going to ask him. So that, I mean, clearly Arliden is known throughout the world. And the fact that Kavoth doesn't ever mention him, is pretty clear evidence that he does not want to talk about him.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see maybe a little bit how that's hashed out a little bit more, how popular or how well known his dad was.
Obviously, he tells Chronicler and Bast. I'm very curious to find out whether he told Denna about his parents. Have you ever told anybody, before we get to this point that he's at the Waystone Inn? I'd be very interested to see if he was ever able to like open up. Because, I mean, there's plenty of times that he considers it for a half second. It's never more than a half second. He just considers, like, nah. He does it a few times with Kilvin. There's quite a few times that he considers it. He considers it with Lauren. He considers it with Denna quite a few times, but then just can't go through with it.
I think he considers it with one of the owners of the bar. Yeah, it comes up over and over where he's like, I almost was getting ready to ask him about or tell him about my family or say something about how the Chandrian killed everybody I know, but then he never.
It's typically like, well, this would be the easiest way to explain why things are the way they are, why I'm the way that I am, but he's not going to do it. So
no. Well, the next part would be we actually move into his dad singing the lay of Sir Savien Treliard, and so it's a couple great things. He's first off, he's like most of the great songs, Sir Savien was written by Ilian, and generally considered to be his crowning work. Which this song is the song that Kavoth sings to win his pipes at the Aeolian. It's a massively famous song. It plays a big role in the books, comes up constantly. But
this Ilian, he seems like a Bryan Adams type, I think, don't you guys?
Yes.
These romantic love songs.
Right. Yes.
It's it's definitely, I mean, the way they build it out, it's interesting that it's so popular. In opposite of Tinker Tanner, anybody can play that with anything. This is extraordinarily difficult to play. And every time it comes up that you talk to a musician about it, musician hears about it, they're like, oh shit, you sure you want to try something that difficult? Like maybe dial it back a little bit and try something that's easier. But then also the way he explains it, it's hellishly complex. And my father was probably the only one in the troupe who could do it justice, though he didn't particularly show it. I knew it was taxing even for him. So even like the way it's always described, there's a lot of mystique around it, or there's a lot of gravity around it and how difficult it is, but also that it is the best song written by the best songwriter in the history of this world. That's
for sure.
Very meaningful, obviously.
And the lyrics is, everything I do it for you. Wait, it's the wrong one.
Oh, that makes sense, because he said, yes, I cried at the end of it. So yeah, it probably is that song.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's 100%. But the song, one thing, because again, as a reminder, we're redoing episode 6. This is not the original episode 6, so we've already recorded a bunch of episodes into the future. So for you guys, this is episode 6, but we've long moved past it. But we talk about this song a number of times. One thing we haven't talked about is how much this song resembles the story of Lanre and Lyra. So the song, first time you get it mentioned is here. This the first time it's brought up, and then he talks about, Kavoth says that Savien was the greatest of the Amyr, and he cried for Savien and Eluine for love lost and love found and lost again at cruel fate in man's folly, which sounds very much like what happens with Lanre and Lyra. The love lost and love found and lost again. The love lost, Lanre dies. She calls him back. It's found again. And then Lyra dies. It's lost again. And at Cruel Fate, which that would be Cruel Fate, and Man's Folly, Lanre, what he does is considered folly. And so it sounds very, very similar. And even like when Scarpy tells the story and Tarbian, the first story, when he tells about the Creation War and he talks about Lanre speaking to Celatos, he says at one point, Lanre asks him, was I accounted a good man? And Celatos says, you were considered, among the best. You were beyond reproach, which is something that they talk about. That's a saying that's attributed towards the Reread, which is a member of the Amyr. And so when they're talking about Savien, the greatest of the Amyr, and he's like, you were counted one of the great of us. You were beyond reproach. It's very much a Reread, Amyr type of thing. And so it fits very well. It fits exactly with that story. So what it raises questions for me is that, was Ilian, is he an original member of like the Ruach? Did he go back to the original people, the original like Greek gods of the world, like Celatos and Lanre and Lyra and Aleph and Telu? Like, did he go all the way back there where, he's what's her face in the Fae?
Felurian.
Felurian does not know who Taborlin the Great is, but she knows who Ilian is. So it could be that the reason she knows Ilian is the fact is they're contemporaries, and so they were around at the same time. Or it also could be that she just loves music and poetry, and so she would be more likely to know someone like Ilian than Taborlin the Great. But the fact that this story so clearly resembles the story of Lanre and Lyra, it makes me question whether Ilian dates all the way back to that time, and then he wrote a song about Lanre and Lyra, but he changed it, and he made it about the Amyr. He made it like about humans, so he just kind of changed some of the details, but he told that same love story and the tragedy. He told the same love story tragedy, but he just kind of twisted things, and it makes me think that Ilian probably dates very far back.
When you mentioned the lyrics, it made me think of Kavoth's story arc. It makes me think that's what's going to happen. He's going to find love, lose it, find it again, lose it again, and then Man's Folly, Kavoth's Folly, and then boom, here we are.
Yeah, and something that I keep thinking about is throughout this story is that there's a rhyming to the history, like now, or that it's cyclical, and that maybe it didn't have to be that Ilian changed the names. Maybe it was somebody else, and this story keeps playing out.
Could be that as well.
Yeah. With Kavoth.
Yeah, it could be that as well. It could be Lanre and Lyra, and then Savien and Eluine, and then Kavoth and Denna. It could be that, the same tragic story happening over and over again, and it could be that. I mean, I don't know.
It could also be Ilian's song Last, because he changed the names, while Arliden's song didn't get sung.
Yeah.
Right? Because he didn't change the names.
Yeah,
which if Ilian was a Ruach, he'd probably be smart enough to, pepper that story into the world. He made it a famous story, so he peppered the story of Lanre and Lyra into the world, so everybody knows it. But he changed the details so that it's not clear. Here's, man, this is why he's such a great writer. So you could take it and you could say, okay, it's a cyclical thing, or it's just, the story is about tragedy and he just sprinkled in the same type of tragedies in multiple parts of the world. And so it just keeps, same type of things keep happening. Or it's just, a natural thing that there's these kind of tragedies and love stories. Or it could be that Ilian was a Ruach. He had witnessed these things. He changed the story because he knew he wanted to get that information into the world, but he didn't want to get, the Chandrian killing everybody who hears the song. So he changed some details so that it would spread.
Or the Amyr trying to hide the message. Yeah.
Yeah, and that would play into like the poems and the children's rhymes and all those kind of things where there's information embedded in these things that you wouldn't pick up. And so there's multiple ways you could read this, and you could say it's part of that embedding things into children's poems or songs or things like that. Or it is something that just keeps playing out over time, so he's not actually doing that. You can also say that part of the reason that Kvothe seems to have this magical ability when he plays music is the fact that he's Ru, and Ilian dates back to the Ruach. And so not only does Kvothe have a lineage all the way back to Ajax or possibly even Ajax and Lanre and Lyra, maybe he also on his dad's side has lineage all the way back to Ilian. So maybe he's a descendant of Ilian and Ajax. So there's so many different ways you could look at these little pieces and see how they would you could make a case for any of them and they would all fit. None of them like contradict, none of them are impossible. They could all work perfectly in the story and make perfect sense. And there's just no way to know. And there's just so much of the books that give you just layers and layers and layers to kind of analyze and try to piece together. And it gives you a lot of, information that you can scrutinize and try to figure out.
Well, and that's what's so great about it is that he doesn't tie it all up. It's all left open so you can speculate. And there's evidence behind all of it to be interconnected or loosely disconnected. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's
such an impressive way to write. I mean, because it cannot. Maybe some of them are by accident, like he didn't even fucking think about it. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's things we talk about that he's probably been like, hey, no, I just wrote that. I didn't even put two thoughts into like how you guys would tear it apart and analyze it that way.
It's nice how that worked out, isn't it?
Yeah, like some of them could be just happy coincidences where we're fucking praising him and he's like, man, I was fucking drunk when I wrote that. But
that was Shandy's. That was Shandy's idea. Yeah. I just threw that in there.
Yeah, it's like I was just filling up space. I needed to, finish that fucking chapter. I was, fucking just drinking a bunch of coffee. Just wrote it. Didn't even think anything of it. It's just like, yeah, there, that works. Fine, good enough.
No, it's one of the most suspenseful books. I mean, you could throw out any category, especially for fantasy, but the suspense is just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the anticipation, like trying to figure the part of it is it's been so long, so that's part of what builds the anticipation, and the reason people try to figure it out is because it's been so long. Like if the third book came out a year later, you wouldn't have so many people fucking analyzing and scrutinizing everything. So part of it is just the nature of the timeline, that it's been so long and people are dying for that third book and they got nothing better to do than to fucking pick it apart.
Yeah, Game of Thrones is over.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's and a lot of the Ruark and the Celatos and all of that stuff, all of that mythology and everything that builds into the world kind of blew me by, right? It's not something I delved into upon reading the first two books. Didn't matter. I'm still recommending the books to tons of people because they're so great without delving into all that. But with that all being in there, yes, give us a decade to spend more time on it, and you can. It's in there, and it's interesting to delve into it and to piece it all, try to pull it all apart, put it back together, and connect the dots and everything.
Well, I'm happy to have you guys to fill a lot of this stuff in, but even on the first read, like there was, I haven't sat with it for a decade. After the first read, I'm like, damn, I need that third book more than any other, more than other books that or trilogies or series that have been out, and it's because it's not just the loose ends that he didn't tie up, but it's the interwoven mystery that he puts throughout the story. There's so many little dips and dots, as I think one of you guys like to say that.
It's also the momentum, man. You just want to keep going. You don't want to leave the world. You just, you know what I'm saying? Like, especially after book 2, man, I'm just like, I want to spend more time in every single one of the places that he's been.
Yeah.
Every single one. And he has an act for that, where every time you start to get a little bit comfortable in one piece of the world, it's on to the next. Right? And then suddenly Ben leaves. Or suddenly now the mayor's sending him out on some mission. And you're like, wait, what? Like, and just continuously, it's always, he can't find Denna. Then he finds Denna. Then he thinks he can find Denna. Then he can't find Denna. So, I mean, it's always like, we're never really comfortable in these spaces. And I know you guys hate that tension,
yes,
but it works well for, most readers.
Way too much.
Dan's biting his fingernails. He just bites them all down while he's reading the book. He's all nervous. It's too much tension. Blood pressure's too high. He's trying to calm himself down.
Chugging that blue chalk drink, whatever it is, or no, the pink one.
Malox.
Pepto Bismol. It's Pepto and the whole time while I'm
I understand.
reading this book.
You have like diarrhea when you're reading the book?
Like, isn't that what you like drink for? Like, I don't know, man. I don't get fucking anxiety.
To like calm you down? I don't think so. Well, people now
way too cool for anxiety. Like, what do you guys deal with? Like, what do you drink when you guys are fucking struggling with life?
I think people just smoke weed, man. They just like smoke a joint and try to chill out. I think. I don't know. But the thing you're talking about is like the NYPD Blue characters that's all stressed out with his Tums and his Pepto Bismol and shit.
Yeah,
or George Costanza.
I don't know if I've ever drank it. Like, that's what I'm basing it on. Is I see people like on TV stressed out chugging that fucking pink shit.
It's like, God damn it, Rothfuss! You've done it again, you sly bastard.
You know who does this, Dan? It's the same guy that needs grenadine in his beer. I need to coat my stomach with some pink stuff.
Oh, wow. You guys.
Does anybody have any Tums?
You got a long wait before you get the reference there.
Shit.
Grenadine.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it's coming. It's going to be a long time. You're going to have to wait a while. I think it's probably episode like 15 before you're...
you'll get
13.
You'll get there in no time.
Yeah.
These are just the podcast. It's a great one. The books. You just got to keep rolling.
It's another thing to look forward to is the grenadine in your drink story. Moving back into it though, the next part is Arliden gets coaxed into singing, the song about the Chandrian. So this is the only piece of it we get. Obviously they get killed right after this, so we're not going to get any more of it. So this is what we get. Sit and listen all, for I will sing a story, wrought and forgotten in a time old and gone, a story of a man, proud Lanre, strong as the spring steel of the sword he had at ready hand. Hear how he fought, fell, and rose again, to fall again, under shadow falling then. Love felt him, love for native land, and love of his wife Lyra, at whose calling some say he rose through the doors of death to speak her name at his first reborn breath. Which again sounds very similar to the Lay of Sir Savien Trailiard. The up and down and up again.
Yeah.
Especially with the tragic, the folly, he becomes fucking Haliax after that. But that's the song that gets them fucking wiped out. I mean, just clearly it lends a lot, and it also is very similar. It's pretty much the same exact story that he's going to hear from Scarpy when he gets into Tarbean. He's going to hear about the Creation War. He's going to hear that Lanre, he fought and fell, and then he rose again. and then he falls again, and under shadow falling then. That is the story that Scarpy tells him.
Mm-hmm.
He just gave the intro to what Scarpy's going to tell him. So it lends a lot of credence to the story that Scarpy tells coming up later on. It lends a lot of credence to that his dad found this story, and Scarpy is telling Kavoth the actual truth, that he's not bullshitting him.
Yeah, and it's impressive. So Arliden pieced this all together traveling, right? I mean, he painstakingly talked to enough people. I'm kind of picturing a Scarpy-like character, if not Scarpy himself, passing through areas and spreading this word, and slowly but surely Arliden sort of piecing it together. And I mean, he even went as far as telling us in the previous chapters, he knows what the Chandrian is doing. He knows what their purpose is.
Well, and it says that he's only been working on it for a year. It seems like Kavoth is working on it for
2 years.
2 years. Seems like Kavoth's been working on it for a lifetime, and he hasn't cracked that nut yet.
Well, he's vaguely been working on it. He's not asking anybody. He's like just trying, like Arliden was going from town to town asking every single person about the Chandrian and trying to get stories and stuff. Kavoth's not doing that.
Yeah, Kavoth's also trying to meet tuition and not get killed by Devi.
He's
got a lot else going on.
He doesn't seem to be pursuing it like Arliden was pursuing it. So, if you're not asking anybody about it and you're only relying upon stumbling upon some book, you're probably going to struggle, because it seems like, the Amyr or Chandrian or both have secured the history of the world pretty fucking well, where it's very hard to fucking find out the truth from books.
Well, we especially find that out with the mayor, right? Because it seems like he did focus and he did spend a lot of time, and he has resources. Yeah,
if he can't find it, Kavoth's not going to find it just on his own.
Well, that's interesting,
that's why,
Tim.
That's why it's so impressive that Arliden was able to accomplish what he did. So it makes me feel like he had assistance. You know what I mean? Maybe there was somebody, like a Scarpy out in front of him laying the track. I don't know. I hadn't taken it this far to speculate.
It doesn't seem like he had a lot of assistance, because it took him 2 years, and he's been asking, it seems like he's asking everybody he comes across. And so it seems like he's just getting, a piece here, a piece there, a piece there. And then he's intelligent. And so he's able to take all those pieces and, slowly put together a story.
Yeah, I guess it is also his craft. This is what he does. So you got somebody that's the best, one of the best alive at this, doing this. So
plus, like when he describes it, like when he describes it to Ben in whatever that was, chapter 12, it's clearly been very difficult. He talks about it's like asking about the grandkids, and then one of them has blue eyes and one has brown and another has green and brown, and he's like there's no rhyme or reason to it all. Like all the details are so disjointed, and he's like, it seems like it clearly took him a long time to piece together all the details to make it make sense.
It's interesting because he seems to have found the hardest things to find, but then can't nail down the simpler things, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what he was talking about. It's like, I need to know, like, how many and what do they do? And, like, it's like the simplest things. And that was what was so frustrating for him. And yeah, that analogy, I think,
which would make sense. Like you think about it, like just on what we've seen the Chandrian do, like as far as they wiped out his family for singing a song. Kavoth survives. So you could imagine a scenario where someone else was, singing a song about them or mentioning them, and then the Chandrian swooped in and fucking killed everybody. Or like the Motham Farm, they found a clay plate, or whatever. They found like some kind of ceramic or some vase or something that had pictures of all the Chandrian on it, and they wiped out everybody. But one girl knew that story. So you would think so he could go through town to town and hear about the Chandrian wiping these people out, and one person has a detail that gives a clue to why they wiped him out. Like Kavoth was able to figure out they wiped them out because they found that clay pot. So Arliden maybe finds out, these people say they were wiped out by the Chandrian for this reason, and they say for this reason. Then he sees all these reasons, and he's like, okay, now I know why they're doing it. But then what would be harder is their signs, their names, those kind of things, because anybody who would know those kind of things would be dead.
Well, and then also what his wife, I don't know why I always draw a blank on her name.
Lorien or Natalia
yeah.
Reckless.
Yeah. She pieces together the other part of that's so vexing is they're not always together.
Yeah.
So that's why you're also getting mixed stories, because now it's like, well, yeah, it's hard to hold it together because you're trying to look for consistency, right? That's how you piece together a story. And when you don't have that consistency, it's, it takes, it's 2 years. I mean, this guy's spending much, much longer than what he typically would. However, he knows the importance of the song.
Yeah.
But then,
and that's what makes it like the details would be harder to figure out than their mission seems to be more consistent. There's more consistency behind their goal. Like, we don't know exactly what it is, but we have a good idea that anybody who knows any true piece of history on them, they're fucking taking them out. Their names.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems like they're pretty successful.
Find a vase on with pictures on them. They're wiping those motherfuckers out. So that gives us a clue on what their overall goal is. So it seems like it would be easier to figure out what their overall goal is than to figure out that they don't always show up together all the time, that their signs are different, what their names are. Those seem like those would be much harder to figure out.
Just talking about the history of them brings up a thought to me, and something that I can't wait to get back to is Denna's story or song about them, because it seems like she has a totally different account of what happened. Not only that, but has found it through secret libraries, occult libraries that the mayor may have access to. Is that right?
Well, it seems like she was collecting the story the same way Arliden was, and probably access to books and that kind of thing, except for she was being led by her patron. So I don't know, but it wasn't about the Chandrian. It was basically the same story Scarpy told, except for hers ended at a different spot. It ended before Lanre sacked the cities and killed everybody. It seems like she just told about Lanre being betrayed, and she doesn't finish it and tell, what happened next. That Lanre becomes Haliax and fucking starts murdering everybody. So that it seems like she's telling the same story. She's cutting off the ending and making him a tragic figure and a heroic tragic figure instead of a heroic tragic figure that turns into a monster. She's leaving out the and turns into a monster part.
Slightly important.
Yeah.
I mean, completely miscast the whole story.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Which clearly she doesn't have the right story, because we know fucking Haliax is a fucking monster. I mean, they fucking murder the Mothin farm. They murder his family. Like, I don't care what their justification is. Fucking monsters. Like, Arliden and Lorien don't fucking deserve to be fucking murdered.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely hard to be able to make. I mean, you can make sense out of it to justify, but yeah, it's vicious murder. So
yeah, of good
ends
people
justified. I was gonna say, if you want to try the ends justify the means, that's a bad one. That's a really gross one.
Despite what they're doing, the why they're doing is the one that gets me. That's the real mystery of it all, because what's the purpose? Why, is there? I can't even. There's infinite possibilities to the why for me right now. Maybe you guys have some better insight into it, but I have no idea why the Chandrian would go around, and specifically Haliax, because it seems like they're all slaved to Haliax in some sense. So what's Haliax's purpose? Why is he doing what he's doing?
Yeah, good question. Don't know. I mean, we'll tease it out a little bit here once we get into the next chapter. But yeah, I don't who the fuck knows. That's part of the mystery. I don't care what anybody says. Whatever their answer is, it's a fucking guess. You can't piece that out from these first 2 books. You can have a decent idea that they want. It's pretty clear that the Amyr and the Chandrian try to keep parts of their history hidden, but why and what exactly they're trying to do and who's telling half-truths and full truths and that kind of stuff, who fucking knows? It's possible to know. It's not enough details. We're missing big pieces of the puzzle. Yeah. Then the only other parts of this chapter I had is, it finishes with he gets the book from Ben, he gets Rhetoric and Logic, and it's, Kavoth, defend yourself well at the university, make me proud, remember your father's song, be wary of folly, your friend Abinthy, which you could really tease that out, and like the defend yourself well at the university, make me proud, remember your father's song, be wary of folly. Like, these are warnings and that would play a very important role in his life. Defend yourself well at the university. He's got Ambrose as fucking challenging him and tries to murder him. They remember your father's song. Like, his father's song is going to be a massive role in his life. It's going to be similar to what Cinder fucking tells him. Like, someone's parents have been singing together, all together the wrong song. And be wary of folly. He names his sword Folly, and obviously Folly fucks up his life. Like, he makes a mistake. I think that's pretty clear. So that's a very story. You could read that and just say that's just like, helpful advice, and it just happens to be that all these pieces are very pertinent advice, or it could be that Abinthy has some kind of foresight into what lays before him.
Well, and he also happened to echo the 2 songs we just heard. Like, he echoes Lay of Sir Savien Trailyard on the Folly part, and also Arliden's song. So that kind of speaks back to what we talked about before, where these things mirror each other, echo one another. And I mean, throughout too, the defend yourself well at the university even comes up with the first time he's on the horns and he almost gets screwed, and it's like he remembers, oh yeah, this is where I speak up, and he does, and he saves his ass.
No defense.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you could take it the other way, that it's just just a natural thing, like defend yourself well at the university. Remember, I've been telling you, fucking, your wits are gonna protect you more than anything else in your life. So keep your wits together. Fucking defend your arguments. Be good. Be intelligent. Make well-sound arguments. Be willing to defend them. Remember your father's song. It could just simply be like, you almost fucking killed yourself. Remember the tragic story of Lanre. That's the story he's telling. Your dad's going to tell the tragic story of Lanre, so remember that song so you don't make these mistakes. Same with be wary of folly. Be wary of making these stupid mistakes. He did see him almost kill himself because of the massive hole that Rothfuss left in. Well, and so, like, there are reasons for everything he wrote. You could make excuses for it, or you could take it the other way and say that it was all kind of a warning, because Abinthy kind of knew, he knew what his parents were meddling in. He knew what kind of dangers he might face at the university. He knew his personality type, so he could give a warning like that, or it could be like clairvoyance. So there's multiple different ways you could take that little message.
Yeah, well, and then two things that just popped up in my mind as well is defend yourself well at the university. I think of when he battles people in Elxadal's class.
Yeah.
And then also remember your father's song with, the whole story of Lanre. He talks about it right after he did the whole thing with, putting his lungs together with the air outside. He's, uses it as he's about to tell him the story of Lanre do you know the story of Lanre? He's like, oh yeah. And then Kvothe says a completely wrong story. He's like, that's not it. And then he just tells him some other story. He uses some other, analogy to try to get his point across. But again, he harkens back to that here with Remember Your Father's Song, which, it's 4 sentences, man. Rothfuss always, he has that ability to tie so many things that we can make all these interconnections from in 4 sentences.
Yeah, I'll keep coming back to it over and over, but it's one of these vague foreshadowings, if I can be redundant. It's less than a foreshadow because you have no idea what he's actually talking about or what he's alluding to. But
it ties back again to who is he? Because is he clairvoyant? Is he Amyr? In all of these things, you can make an argument from every perspective based off these 4 sentences as well. Like the utility in saying
hard,
each one.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that Rothfuss wrote this many signals that you could read so many different ways with Abinthy, where you could make him, it's coincidence, he's clairvoyant, he's Amyr, he's da-da-da-da-da-da. You got all these different ways you could read everything that he does. And
it's like he wants me to go crazy.
It's hard to believe that it's all accidental, that he was not anticipating us fucking trying to to question Abinthy. It's hard to believe. If he heard me questioning Abinthy, he heard us talking about Abinthy, and he was just like, man, I've never fucking once I stopped writing about Abinthy, I haven't thought about him since. I would be shocked.
I would also think the amount of buildup and the amount of to be able to have all these things connect in this way, you can't just write this in extraordinary and keep it as vague and subtle as it is accidentally. You can't write something that cleverly, dude, and do it sloppily. It doesn't.
If he did it and it was all pure accident, he had no anticipation that people would pick apart Abinthy and that it would question him. He didn't think about that at all. Then I'm 100% convinced that the multiverse exists. And because there would have to be one possible universe that someone would accidentally fucking create a character that gets analyzed this deeply without any possible way to know the answer, but the writer did not do it on purpose. The multiverse definitely exists if Rothfuss did not do this on purpose.
So assuming that's not, I believe in the multiverse, but I assume that Rothfuss did do a lot of this on purpose. And I think that he probably, maybe to our dismay, has written in a lot of red herrings and dead ends that, that he put out just for us to catch a scent of, and speculate on.
Here's the thing, though. If the multiverse exists, what would really bother me is that there's a version of our podcast that's way better than this, and that really bothers me.
This is the one.
No, there's an infinite amount. There's an infinite amount. There has to be one better.
No,
they've said all the right words. There is no end. So if the multiverse does not exist,
you've convinced me we should just stop.
Yeah.
Why do anything?
Yeah, exactly.
I do anything. I'm a mutant. Fuck it.
There were a couple things that he peppered in that I just wanted to mention that aren't huge things, but there's a particular image that he mentions of his parents that I think he holds for the rest of his life, and it's why he's not friend zoned with Dinah, but we've talked about that. We tease that out quite a bit of how he wants to be something that doesn't really fit with her. But it's just when the last time he sees basically the two of them holding one another, and the way he describes it, the image of them swaying gently to the music is how I picture love in my mind even after all these years. And he goes, and before that, it's like, if you can find someone who you can hold and close your eyes to the world with, then you're lucky, even if it only lasts for a minute or a day. So it's like that image in his mind is that burn that's forever in his mind. And it's why he's like always a good dude to Denna, and always has this image of who she is in his mind. And Fella can throw herself at him and he's blind to it. And all these other women can. Eventually he comes out of it, and, he at least sees the, worth and, the sport that can be involved with, the friction where,
I don't know what you're meaning. Could you explain it more in detail? I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I think that it's obvious that Kavoth is somewhat of a hopeless romantic, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, he holds that picture of his mom and dad. It seems like his mom and dad were very loving and involved with each other, not just with him, but that's his picture of happiness. And so yeah, he holds that as the key to life, or his main goal. Maybe not just. I don't think it is just the Chandrian. I think that in Kavoth's head, to get back to that point of family and real love, like Mary J. Blige talked about. I think that's what Kavoth.
I think this. No, I think where you're going with that. This is like the real completion he would be looking for, even if he's not consciously thinking about it. It's got to be in the subconscious of his mind, based on what this is here. And we've talked about that before, also, where it's he's had this picture, this example of two people that genuinely love each other, and when they're your parents, that's a pretty good model that you're going to build your progression and the way that you see how a relationship could be in the future for, yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, so there was that. And then it kind of got followed up with an interesting little, where he talks about his mother and Ben dancing. They complimented each other by contrast. I ached knowing I might never see them together again. And when I sort of read that, it's like on a second read, it's just like, oh shit. This is right before he's not going to see his parents ever again. You know what I mean? Like so that kind of there's a subtle thing that he does these things where it's like, kind of like in sales where you just want to get people saying yes a lot. It feels a little bit like that, where he's just prepping you for what's about to come subtly. It's not about his parents. It's about his mother and Ben, but he's about to never see either of them ever again. Might see Ben. We'll find out, but.
Yeah, bad shit was on the way. The only other thing we skipped over is just the the troop fucking performing for each other.
Yeah, it's great.
And obviously, part of Kavoth's upbringing is just growing up in a great traveling group. There's not much to say about it. I mean, yeah, they're performers and they're going overboard because this is what they do for a living. So when you're trying to impress each other, you're gonna fucking amp it up and try some new things, do some different things. The only notable part is fucking, what was that?
I said it sounded like a great time, like a real hootenanny.
Yeah, definitely a real hootenanny.
Oh, Fitz is in a cabin somewhere. If people didn't put that together.
Yeah.
I gotta go split wood later.
Probably the only meaningful part that gets me emotional when I read it is that fucking dance that fucking Shandy gave.
The private.
Hey,
I cry every time I read that. It's just fucking beautiful.
Do you think that they went back into the tent and Shandy was like, "Look, I'm not gonna do this dance for you unless you come into my tent." You think that's another one of Rothfuss's euphemisms? Come into my tent.
No, why would you take a moment where I just said this is something that's very emotional to me, and then you would just make it dirty and gross?
Who said
This
dirty?
is like a beautiful moment between two lovely people. Fuck. I hate this fucking podcast.
You and Kavoth are always so fucking emotional. Jesus.
Well, Dan's so respectful around women, like Kavoth.
Yes.
You know. So this
That's
idea.
It's all women say about me. It's like Mr.
Hey, man.
Respectful.
I think this is just another piece of realizing where Rothfuss was when he wrote most of these books. And it's a private dance, dude.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's just a private. He's going back there, and that's what she'll do it.
Fuck, man.
And she's not
No
going to dance
imagine,
for him.
champagne room?
You're like, he's got like fucking a notepad out with as he's getting his fucking lap dance, and he's fucking just like, oh, this is great, Shandy. What's your name? Your name's Shandy? Shandy. I love that name. Shandy's dance.
She's like, "What are you
Kavoth
doing?"
Plays Shandy's dance.
I'm putting you in my book.
Yeah.
That's how he got that private. That's how he got that
Man.
private.
Hope those girls got some royalties.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
that
no.
was it for that chapter.
Well, for me, I did want to say about that whole the chapter's fun to read. I mean, the titles of the chapters many times hint at how serious Kavoth is at this point and how kind of depressing he is now telling this story. Because reading the chapter, reading this party atmosphere, it's fun. It's like it's lively. It seems enjoyable. You get a lot of pieces of who he is. You think it'd be really kind of nice to reminisce. And the chapter's distractions and farewells. So now they're just distractions. That's what they are. Instead of being like these, like lively moments that sort of help like define him, but also, send him off. I mean, it's sad as shit, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of jumped out at me in that context.
That's astute, Tim, because if you remember a couple chapters ago at the interlude when Kavoth begins to start telling the story again, it might have been just the last chapter, but he says, all right, now basically hold on to your asses, guys. I know it's been fun and games up to this point, but it's getting ready to take a dark turn. And then he immediately starts telling this great story about how they had this wonderful hootenanny.
There it is again. There was one little other build up, or there will be a payoff with. He talks about the thought was terrifying that the troop and everything was. How's it go? What would it be like to settle in one place? No more performing, no tumbling with Trip, or playing the bratty young noble's son and 3 pennies for wishing. So that what he mentions there, we get that in the when he goes to the tailor in Tarbeen and he runs roughshod over him. So we kind of know he's an actor anyway, but I remember that jarring in my mind that he was capable of that. It's such a great, the whole thing is fantastic when it does come. And I don't know, seems like maybe 5-10 chapters from now, but yeah.
It's probably
this
chapter
was that
like
little
30
placing.
or so, 29, 30, something like that.
No, whatever. Yeah. But that's kind of I like those little, those little reminders, those little foreshadows. But
a little setup for you.
But yeah, I mean, other than I'll just say hootenanny, and that's all I have for the chapter.
Yeah, I will concur. Hootenanny.
A real hee-haw, a real barn burner.
Nice barn burner. He should have named the chapter that.
They don't. Well,
speaking of titles that are incorrectly titled, chapter 16 is incorrectly titled Hope. In this chapter, Kavoth begins his formal training as a performer. He learns to dance, sword play, jape, if you will, and etiquette for about 6 months. One day, Kavoth goes out to the woods to poop, and when he comes back, everyone is dead. He finds the Chandrian around his parents' fire, and Cinder teases him until Haliax stops him. Haliax tells Cinder to kill Kavoth, but before he can, something startles the Chandrian, and they vanish in a whirlwind of Haliax's shadow. Kavoth says the air changed and he felt like someone was watching him. Kavoth then goes on to into his parents' wagon and finds his parents' bodies, and he faints. He wakes up with the wagon on fire and quickly grabs his dad's loot, a couple other things, and runs into the woods and plays his lute until his fingers bleed, and there he falls asleep. Guys?
Yeah, you get, like, in the beginning, you get to see why his education is so well-rounded, why he's able to act so well, why he's able to play different roles, why he's able to intermingle with different crews, and why he can, mingle with the nobility. Shows it gives you reasons to believe why he's able to do a lot of the things he's able to do later on in the books. Like, Rothfuss laid the groundwork for why he's able to, intermingle between different groups, and a large part of it is his acting and his mother's teaching him etiquette and that kind of thing, and how, she's an Italialaclus, she's nobility, so she was able to kind of teach him what she knew, and he was able to utilize those skills very well. Especially get it when he meets the mayor.
It's kind of interesting how he introduces that here, because we get an impression that he was kind of picking this all up, and we know, he's extraordinarily brilliant, but he's kind of picking this all up, and then here, once Ben leaves, he kind of puts a fine, a more, refined approach to all these things. Like, now he's really starting to learn them with more deliberateness, and he's picking all these things up. And yeah, it's pretty interesting to be able to see it in that way. And yeah, we find out, the utility that he gets from these things that he learns throughout, a page and a half here.
You get another one of these true to life moments too, where he's talking to his mom and she's teaching him etiquette, and he's like, when am I ever going to use this shit? Like, why do I need to know this bullshit? I can't tell you how many times I felt that way growing up in school.
Yeah, but the difference is, usually most of the times you feel that way in school, you're like, you become an adult and you're like, yeah, I was 100% right. You were fucking wasting my goddamn time. Like, what the fuck were you teaching me this bullshit that I'm never going to fucking use? Like, I got to remember all these dates. Like, who gives a fuck?
Well, speaking,
but his mom's right in that he definitely needs to know it. That's his dad's savvy in talking to that other mayor and his own success. It goes to show, you got to know, he needs to know the ways of the world, and at this, when it has to do with royalty and etiquette and everything.
Well, and speaking to how he can move in and out of situations, I like my father systematically went about showing me the true mechanics of the actor's trade, how slight changes in accent or posture make a man seem oafish or sly or silly. That's something I can actually picture as he says it, and then also that ends up being used. I just mentioned when he plays the bratty kid and the tailor, he walks differently.
Yeah,
he tilts his
sets
head
his
a
shoulders
little bit differently.
and
Exactly. Yeah, so like being able to know that stuff, and personally, as I've gotten older, and there were a lot of situations where it could have gone pretty bad if I didn't act a certain way. And if you just own the situation and you're just a certain type of enthusiastic about something, people kind of like let you alone, or you can get away with certain things if you have like the right attitude. And I really like that little piece here, because it does speak to his, again, how he's becoming more refined with the application of these lessons. And again, it all comes in with also knowing that we already buy in that he's brilliant. So then being able to apply it, because we do, it's one thing to show that he's brilliant and say that he is, but then give him these tools and pieces that really builds that out. So it's something that we can picture and imagine and then apply for him as he moves forward.
Yeah, and then he goes and he goes off in the woods so his parents can bone and give a good bone. They were hankering for a good bone instead of the little half bones that they'd been getting.
Yeah, they really built that out, didn't they? They kind of went balls deep on that one.
Yeah.
Told him to get bushels of that sage.
Man, she needed that fucking good Good dicking down.
Well, it was good timing. It was very good timing because the hammer's about to fall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
get one last one in.
He's like, I hope they spent their last few hours well. I hope they didn't waste them on mindless tasks, kindling the evening fire, cutting vegetables for dinner. Hope they sang together as they so often did. I hope they retired to our wagon and spent time in each other's arms. I hope they lay near each other afterward and spoke softly of small things. I hope they were together, busy with loving each other until the end came. It is a small hope and pointless, really. They are just as dead either way, still, I hope. Which obviously that's where the title comes in. The hope is his hope that they spent their last few hours well. But also,
yeah, it did.
It's interesting honestly, the way he did that.
It did kind of bother me that you said incorrectly titled. I think that's a bit much to say it's incorrect. But yeah, sorry, not to interrupt.
Okay,
it hurt me, and I didn't say anything.
Yeah,
and now I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Okay, you got that off your chest.
Yeah, I feel better.
But it's kind of interesting the way he did that, because obviously his parents are going to get fucking murdered, and he softens, not really softens the blow, but he tells you they get murdered before they get murdered. Like, before you see the bodies, he tells you that you're about to see some fucking bodies. Like, they're just as dead either way. So it's an interesting way to write that. You're not just, he could have just said, like, he goes out in the woods, his parents were doing their thing, and then when I came back, and then fucking he finds all the dead bodies. But he kind of preempts it. It preempts the blow by just fucking out and out saying it. They're fucking dead.
It's really interesting too, because he does preempt it, and then he gives us like a breath where he builds into, so it's like, he talks about, like, I'm not really going to tell you what I did in the woods while he's pooping, but he kind of
hold on, no, just on that, there is no evidence that he took a poop in the woods. There is no evidence for that theory. We still are not. We don't have any crystal clear evidence that there are bathroom breaks. So we can't unequivocally say there's mentions of peas a few times, but there is not one mention of taking poops. So we cannot just say that. That's that's pure speculation.
Dan, you've got your holes that you like to fill, and I've got like my holes that I like to fill.
Yeah. I will say it has become fun for me to put them in. Like, it's important they're there, because it's not like, this is not the type of things you want to read about. But the realist,
I mean, that's one of the biggest mysteries of book 3.
Yeah. The realist reader wants flossing and brushing of teeth and washing of hands, changing your socks, taking poops and pees.
Like, if they're taking poops, where's the toilet paper? Like, why do they not talk about toilet paper? Like, he talks about all the other stuff he buys. No toilet paper? Yeah, leaves. I don't believe it. I don't buy it.
Use leaves.
Don't buy it.
So it's a practical use of sympathy. To have some type of,
Yeah.
No, but anyway, so what's really interesting is he tells us they're going to be dead. Then he doesn't quite tell us yet, but he does a great job of sort of building us into what I think is so perfect about it is he tells us that's what it's going to be, and then he walks us into the scene as Kavoth, and we're literally seeing what he's seeing. Bodies strewn, the smell of blood and burning hair, how he wanders around aimlessly, he's like disoriented. He and like he even does like some weird thing with like there's like a pot over the fire, and he just like takes it off. Just to do something that's normal. He really does a tremendous job of making you feel like you're in shock.
Yeah.
And passing through this awful, like, gross scene. And it's weird because he does this really interesting thing where he's in shock, he sees awful things, and then he's just kind of like doing, again, moving the pot, and then he looks down and you see, like, gore, basically. around
Yeah,
him.
he's just like methodically moving through a horror movie.
Yeah, and it's not even just horror and gore, it's the horror and gore of the people he knows and loves the most in the world. Pretty brutal.
Yeah, and it I like the description you gave, just of muddling through in shock. It's obvious that he's in shock, the way that he matter-of-factly explains everything that he sees without, one thing after another, what he sees without any emotion tied to it.
Yeah, and he is telling himself that he's in shock. I mean, he knows he's in shock, but it's kind of like it's an outer body experience. Like he knows what his body is feeling and going through, and he's just kind of outer body experiencing these things. But we also get, like, through him seeing the fucking horror show, like I saw Terran's body laying by his wagon, his sword broken in his hand. So we start to get confirmation on Chandrian signs. So we see the broken sword, which could be one of the Chandrian signs. So again, they are Sythe bears the blue flame, Sturkis is in thrall of iron. So Sturkis in thrall of iron, that's more than likely the sword broken in his hand. You would think that Sturkis would have the power to break these swords because iron is used in making them. And then for Rule, chill and dark of eye, Uznea lives in nothing but decay. Grey Dalcenti, the great and almighty, powerful Grey Dalcenti, never speaks. He's busting cigs. And Pale Linta brings the blight. Last there is the Lord of Seven, hated, hopeless, sleepless, sane. Alexel brings the shadow same. So we get a number of confirmations on these signs. We get the broken swords. We get all the flames were tinged with blue, making the scene dreamlike and surreal. When I gripped it, the iron bands that reinforced the wheel crumbled in my hand, flaking away in gritty sheets of brown rust. When I pulled my hand away, the wheel creaked and began to crack. I stepped back as it gave away, the wagon splintering as if its wood were rotten as an old stump. So we get iron rust, wood rots. We get a bunch of confirmations on the Chandrian signs, which lends a lot of credence to what Cheyenne will tell him later on when he goes to Dimray, and the leader of the Adim of the group that he goes and sees, when she tells him the story of the Chandrian and she tells them their names and their signs, seems like she's fucking spot on.
Yeah. And it's interesting first read through. It's like, oh, okay, so these are what they're supposed to be. But on further read throughs, it's very important that these are here, right? Because it's our only situation of real time seeing what they do, and it's accurate. What these other things are telling us is accurate. What signs we see at the Moth and Farm tie into what we see here. What you say, Cheyenne, I call her Shady Nasty. What Shady Nasty's story shows us, that's all accurate. And
Shadynasty is pronounced Shadynasty.
Yes, you're right. Sorry, Shadynasty. And then there was another, I don't know, there was another example, but I'm missing it now. But yeah.
Full-on rapist. I mean, philanthropist.
But yeah, we also get the Cinder, right? The goat eyes, no iris. I mean, we get, and that also really says a lot. The fact that all of these signs are known about what individuals do, but those individual signs that tie into Cinder really speak to, it kind of elevates him, right? Where he is definitely, it seems like he's the consigliere here. He's, the second in command that really is the most evil.
Yeah, he's Starscream to Megatron.
Okay, We'll go with that.
The other thing that...
he's got a cassette tape in his chest?
No, Starscream does not have a cassette in his
chest. I don't know.
Starscream
That's the only one I remember. Okay, yeah.
Nerd. You're a nerd.
I'm a nerd because I don't know?
Yeah, you're a nerd. You don't know. You don't know fucking Transformers, dork. You
I haven't
nerd,
seen it since
loser.
I was 10, if that. But I do remember one having a cassette tape in his chest, and it was cool. That one was cool, but yeah, whatever.
It's Bumblebee.
Bumblebee? Bumblebee too?
No, that is not. Bumblebee is
Wait a minute.
No, the
on the
cassette
good
tape
side.
guy's white. I remember the cassette tape guy is white. And yes,
The cassette guy. No, he is purple. Like you guys, I'm not even doing this show with you guys anymore.
I love the guy that knows all the facts for Transformers calling us nerds.
Bunch of nerds. Fucking
Wasn't
get
Bumblebee
everything
the only
wrong,
one?
you dorks.
Isn't Bumblebee the one that could only speak like through the radio?
That's on the fucking terrible movies. That's not the comic. That's not the cartoons. You guys don't get it.
I haven't seen the cartoon since I was a kid. I'm sorry.
You stupid idiots.
I can't believe you apologized, dork. What are you apologizing for?
I'm apologizing because I need to watch the show again. I love that show, and I need to bring it back. He's right. I'm a dork for not knowing.
Yes.
I will say this about Cinder. I mean, if you're gonna make a villain, that's pretty great. I mean, he's a chilling son of a bitch, and like the way he moves, like the how he like tumbles when he moves, and how fast I mean, that's a scary dude, man. And he is some real evil shit. Like, it's not just that he fucks with Kavoth, it's that he like plays a role. Like, he's like, oh, wherever are your parents? Does anyone know where his parents are? And it's like, oh, I know where your parents. It's like, you fucking asshole, dude.
Well, yeah,
like,
it's sadistic. I mean, you're talking about it.
Yeah,
you just
exactly.
Murdered a 12-year-old's parent. Like, even if you're a murderer, like, why would you be that fucking sadistic and like take joy in the fact
I love
that you
this.
murdered a little kid's parents because they sing a song about
is
you?
this
Like,
yeah?
what
Is
the
this
fuck's
your
wrong with you, man?
Is this your parents' fire? He asked with a terrible delight in his voice. Like, Jesus, dude.
Yeah, he's
fucking...
like. I mean, there's no way. Like, I mean, there's people that think like the Chandrian are gonna end up not being the bad guys, and it's like, no, there's no fucking way. Like, I mean, unless
this kills
you're
that.
like. You even if you want to say like, okay, there's no confirmation that the Chandrian actually killed his parents. Kavoth didn't see that. Okay, well, they're still not good guys because he's fucking taunting a little kid about his parents getting murdered. So like, what? They just showed up and they thought it was hilarious.
Yeah,
like your
so
fucking parents got murdered. This is hilarious, and they're just hanging out.
They show up.
What kind of bullshit writing would that be?
They show up,
good
take
or bad.
credit.
Cinder seems like a real jerk. We can go with that.
He's got bad manners.
He's just mean. He's just a mean guy. He's just so mean. The idea, that's such a ridiculous theory. The idea that they just show up, take credit, and then torment Kavoth.
Like, no matter what, they're not good people. They're fucking garbage people.
So to make that make sense, it's like, okay, but they have to plant the seed to make him so angry that he's going to spend the rest of his life trying to kill these people.
Yeah.
That would be like the turnaround justification for that?
Okay, it would like, if Rothfuss went that route, like, I think there's going to be some gray to the Chandrian and why they're doing what they're doing.
Some gray Del Cinti?
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Will lead to a theory that we'll dive into with.
Tonto. I can see that, and I could concede that. That would make me respect Rothfuss's writing a little bit less. Because, dude, really, that's the choice.
Oh yeah, they're the good guys.
Yeah. I like the twist. Okay, fine. I like the Shyamalan twist we're going with there. But to have them come out and be sadistic, you don't have to push it that far.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, just to throw us off the scent.
That would ruin the twist. It's not a twist at that point. You just, you threw out a massive red herring and you manipulated the audience.
And then you're like,
tricked you. Yeah, of course you tricked us because you fucking manipulated us. You made him fucking a psychopath.
So
and now I'm supposed to believe he was actually a good guy in that scene? No, he's not a fucking good guy in that scene. He's a fucking scumbag.
No, they're not good guys. But he could throw in a twist that made
they're jerks.
They're
right?
jerks. But I don't even really want to play devil's advocate here, but it's you hear a lot in stories, about this. End justifies the means, or like for instance, when you watch The Godfather, and your protagonist is this murdering crime boss. You know what I mean? It could be one of the situations where it depends on their purpose.
Yeah, okay, but you could come up with a plausible theory why like some people would like murder an innocent family, but they're doing it for the greater good, like the Amyr fucking motto. But it's the dancing on their fucking graves in front of their child. Man. Like, no, that's not fucking. I don't care guys. What you fucking do after that point. Like, that's not fucking justified. There's no way to justify that. So, like, if you want to try to sell me that they're the good guys after that, no, get the fuck out of here. They're not the fucking good guys. They're fucking pieces of shit.
Doesn't seem like bringing decay. Isn't that a little overkill? Like, if you're the good guys, like you got to wipe everything out.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you be
it could be a curse.
Pointed?
Their signs could be a curse. It might not be like their superpower. It could be their curse that has been laid upon them to
that's interesting.
Haliax has got the shadow. Like,
actually,
it could
that's
be
really
a curse that is laid upon them to show that they are there.
That's a really interesting. I haven't considered that, because that's a really interesting thing to consider for like Uznea. Because if you bring decay, you can't be around anyone.
Yeah.
Right. You wouldn't be around the people you care about, because you're kind of ruining the good time. Like that they could possibly have. That's interesting. Yeah.
I think it's more likely that their signs are curses than their superpowers, because they're not like great superpowers. They just kind of give away. They give away that they're there. Like
except for Grey
all the flames turn to blue. What's that?
Except for Grey Dalsinti. I mean, he's super fucking cool, man.
Yeah. Well, his that's because he is going to be the hero. Like he's going to be the hero of the story. And that's just fucking written into the books.
I like the idea that he like infiltrates. I don't know if that came after this or before it. So I don't really want to fuck up that.
I can't remember.
Yeah, we got a little jumbled.
Too many episodes now.
So just for you guys,
our theories come in.
Just for you guys listening, we have some good theories, and they get a little bit jumbled because we came back to earlier episodes. But we have some really good Grey Dalsinti stuff. So I don't want to delve too deep because I don't want to ruin those. But yeah,
I know. You're going to get a great theory about Grey Dalsinti in the next episode. I know that for sure.
So I wanted to just touch on something real quick, guys, having to do with this, the Chandrian having a positive purpose, or not positive, but a noble purpose, I guess I should say. I want to go back to, or move forward to something that Lanre says in one of Scarpy's stories about how what he's trying to do is to cut out the pain that humans will and eventually feel in one way or another. I don't know that that's his purpose. I'm not saying that it is, but as we talk about, why their signs could be this and that, it would be a trait of their purpose that they are out to destroy in order to protect from pain. Anything there?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple hints that when Scarpy basically says Haliax's mission is to end the world because all the world is pain and suffering, and he just wants to end it all. Because if there's nothing, then there's no more pain. I think there's a couple parts that lend credence to at least a partial explanation that might be right. Is like you have when Cinder is fucking tormenting Kavoth, and he's like, "You're approaching my displeasure. This one has done nothing. Send him to the soft and painless blanket of sleep." The cool voice caught slightly on the last word, as if it were difficult to say. So again, the last word was sleep. And we learn that Haliax cannot sleep, he cannot die, he cannot forget, he cannot go mad, so he can't escape through the four doors to escape pain. So he's just constantly in a state of pain, and he's just constantly remembering that he lost his woman. So when he says, put him down into the soft and painless blanket of sleep, it pained him to say that. So that lends some credence to the fact that it just pained him to talk about sleep. It lends some credence to that's what he's trying to do, is to end the world because he can't escape. And then like another part was, he goes, I'm glad I decided to accompany you today. You are straying, indulging in whimsy. Some of you seem to have forgotten what it is we seek, what we wish to achieve. And he says to Cinder, he was like, but it's good because Cinder's like, I thank you for reminding me, I won't forget again. And he's like, you will, but it's good because if you didn't forget, perhaps I would forget. And then he was pained at the mention of that word, of saying like, I might forget, when he knows like that's not a possibility for him. So it gives a lot of credence to the fact that Haliak's mission is to end his suffering, because he's in a constant state of suffering. But the fact that he fucking goes after Cinder and he is fucking pissed that he's fucking with Kavoth shows that Cinder is not just cruel. He's not like them. He's using them, and he's using them to the point that he calls Cinder. He says, "You're a tool in my hand, nothing more. You're nothing to me." So it's not like he's like, I'm buddy with these psychopaths. He's like, no, you guys are my fucking tool, and I will fucking end you if you displease me. Like, I'm not like you. We're not on the same page. We're not the same. We're not the same fucking people. I'm above you. I have a different purpose. You guys are just fucking tools to help me accomplish my purpose, and if you displease me, I will fucking end you. But he does not seem to have this cruel desire to torment people like the rest of them do.
Yeah, I picked that up exactly, and we can hash that out more, but because you just said it, I thought that it was interesting as well that he said, it's a good thing I came along with you this time. It's almost, there was some aspect as I was reading through the first time where I thought that the Chandrian picked Kavoth's parents. Seemed to me like Kavoth was a big deal himself.
Yeah,
reading it the second time, I didn't get that, because it's almost like Haliak's just happened upon being at Kavoth's parents' murder. Not that he did not, specifically.
I did not get the feeling that their troop was important to the group, or that Kavoth was important. It seemed like this was just one of their many missions, and it just happened to be that Haliak's decided to accompany him for that mission, but it did not seem like they thought any of these people were significant. I did not get that impression at all, that they thought there was anything significant among this group.
Yeah, the other thing that kind of Kavoth being the hero hubris was that I thought the first time through that they let him live. When, yes, they let him live, but not purposefully. That Haliak's
interrupted.
Yeah. Haliak's ordered it, but then something started coming at him.
Well, by the way, so it seems strange. I mean, this makes me more sort of cognizant of, it seems strange to me that Cinder is alone with that troop, or the battalion, whatever. It's just Cinder, right? There's no, I mean, as far as we know Cinder's there, and then there's all these other soldiers, right? So it's, I don't know. It makes me wonder. I mean, it makes me wonder what the hell they're doing
when they're robbing the King's Road.
I don't want to dive into it because that's something we'll come across and dive into. But I think there's a reason he's with that group. Like, I mean, I'll just give you a quick taste of it without, like, I don't want to like divert ourselves into discussing shit that's gonna happen in book 2. But I think he was likely. It seems like there's a civil war going on, and it seems like Cinder is probably trying to push that along, trying to fuck up the money going to the king from Mayor Alvaron. That would be, I don't think there's any. It would make no sense that Cinder is just fucking trying to make some fucking money. This dude's fucking all powerful.
Exactly.
But he's fucking he's robbing. The mayor is collecting the taxes that he's got to fucking pay to the king, and Cinder's robbing those. And then there's a civil war going on in this world. It seemed like Cinder is probably trying to fucking turn everybody against each other, and that was part of his mission
to create chaos.
But back as far as this chapter goes, like the big pieces I want to talk about is when he does name Cinder, we get a big piece of information because he goes Ferula. He goes, refresh me again to our relationship. The Shadow Man said, a deep sliver of anger running through his patient tone. I am in your service. Cinder made a placating gesture. You are a tool in my hand, the Shadow Man interrupted gently. Nothing more. A hint of defiance touched his expression. He paused. The soft voice went as hard as a rod of Ramson steel. Ferula. Reason that's important is when he goes to Adem and he talks to Cheyenne about the Chandrian, she mentions the different names, and the name she gave for Cinder is Ferule. Ferule. Cinder says Ferula. Ferula. So it's clear that Cheyenne might not be exactly right, but she is pretty fucking close. I think you found the name of the Chandrian.
I think you found a typo in the book. You just spelled it wrong.
Yeah, that's it.
Good call, Tim. Good call, Tim.
But beyond the typo, it shows that her names are probably pretty fucking accurate.
Yeah. I mean, we find that out in a lot of ways. That story that she tells, and it's all by word of mouth. She's not reading something. It's something they pass down, and we get that a lot. That they are very, very, very meticulous. Like with their sword, the story that goes all the way back, and you have to memorize it before you're walking out of this room. And yeah, I mean, there's crystal clear accurate. Well, I would expect, and it does prove that there is a lot of crystal clear accuracy from that story, which we get late too, right? It's pretty late in book 2 that comes out, but we do get it. So
yeah, and the other aspect of it to consider is did Kvothe hear Cinder's true name? And it seems like he did.
Oh.
Does that show some ability to name? Like, it seems like, he goes into kind of a sleeping mind state after his parents get killed when he's in shock. And throughout the rest of the time, it seems like he's kind of like in, his sleeping mind is kind of taken over and is running the show. The fact that he hears Ferula, because when he hears Elxadal call the name of fire, he just hears fire.
Yeah.
So he didn't hear Cinder. He heard Ferula. He heard Cinder's true name. So that could either be just, Rothfuss wasn't thinking, which I don't.
That's really interesting.
Right. I think it's likely that it's an example of Kvothe having some major fucking power. That he was Haliax called Cinder's true name, and Kvothe heard it. I think that's an example of his power.
That's really interesting. I hadn't considered the magnitude of what that means for Kvothe, and that really means a lot towards his goal. His eventual goal, which is to kill Cinder and all, as many of them as he can. he would be one that would be capable. That's
Yeah.
that's really interesting, man. I hadn't actually considered that. Yeah, what that in effect means. In retrospect, I should have, but this is one of those things, man. That it's a small thing in the moment. It looms large, but in the moment when you're reading it, it's a name, right? And you just kind of you go through it. But yeah, once you make all those connections, and then you also consider that yes, he hears fire when Elxadal says fire, and there's other examples of that too, where you hear, what the word would be instead of what it actually is. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, as the reader, we hear iron when Chronicler ties up Bast. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's a mistake on Rothfuss' part. I think that's a clue to how powerful Kvothe is, and I think it's a clue that Kvothe is going to fuck up Cinder in book 3.
So that also speaks to the utility or the need to present this chapter, this particular situation the way that he did, to awaken the sleeping mind, or to put him in the mode of the sleeping mind. Right? Because and he gives those little details in a number of ways. We didn't really point them out, but just, they're there. And yeah, that's really interesting, man, because there's a number of them that does show that is what's happening. And yeah, that's really interesting, man. I hadn't considered that, but yeah, that makes that means a lot, man. That's very important.
Not that he's behind one of the doors or behind the first door, but you're saying like he's in some kind of a state of like heart of stone kind of a state, or at least some kind of a state, not behind the door.
It's like his sleeping mind is kind of running the show. Like, how Loden talks about like how, your sleeping mind is kind of like the fucking animal instinct side of you. And it seems to be running the show. So when like Haliax is like Ferula, it could be a sign that Kvothe's, animalistic, instinctual side was kind of running the show. So he was actually able to hear his true name rather than to hear Cinder or just hear nothing. And it could show like this power that's inside this kid when he's in a traumatic experience. He's just in shock, and he's able to hear the true name of a truly historic figure in this world. Same as he was able to fucking call Felurian's name when he's in the Fae. Mm-hmm. Like almost immediately when he meets her, he's able to call her true name. Shows his fucking power. Go ahead, Tim.
So there's a couple of examples where he's leading into that sleeping mind. My body, this is kind of in the beginning when he's walking through and seeing the gore and bone and blood. My body grew numb. I felt as if I was trying to think through syrup. And then when he sees Cinder for the first time and noticed the goat's eyes and all that, he says, I felt a stab of feeling penetrate the confusion I clutched around me like a thick protective blanket. And something put both its hands deep into my chest and clutched. It may have been the first time in my life I ever was truly afraid. That also reminded me of Loden in terms of how he's able to look into him. But yeah, that speaks to his sleeping mind is running the show. I mean, there's many other ways where he made it seem, we already talked about it, how it's as if he's in a daze, he's in shock, he's put in a state where he's just kind of moving through this. So
and
that would make sense.
He's like having like an outer body experience where he's reminding himself that he's in shock. Like, so there's one part of his mind trying to tell his actual physical body that is going through the motions, hey, you're in shock, like shaking your shoulder and like, hey, you're in shock. But he's not like running the show. It's almost like the co-pilot is trying to tell you this.
Yeah, he literally says, some small rational part of me realized I was in deep shock. It repeated the fact to me again and again. I used all Ben's training to ignore it. I did not want to think about what I saw. I did not want to know what had happened here. I did not want to know what any of this meant.
So the fact that he's in that state and then he hears Cinder's true name I think is significant. I think it shows his power, one, and I do think it shows that his sleeping mind had taken over, which I think will play a big role in when he goes into the woods and starts playing his music, and he starts playing, when a leaf turns and that kind of stuff. I think it shows some magical aspect to that. I think his sleeping mind had fucking taken control of him, and kept control for many years.
Yeah, that's interesting too. So if he's sitting in that sleeping mind state, and then weaving these songs for all that time, and making these emotions come to life, and articulating all these experiences that he's had up to that point in his life, no wonder when he plays that for people, it locks them up.
Yeah.
They just get locked, and they just it's so great when he writes that stuff. It's so good. It's really fun, or cathartic to sit in that as a reader. I've never read anything like that I can put my finger on personally. Yeah, it's really great. But I hadn't really considered that he's in that sleeping mind state for that long of a period, in which case he exercises through it. So no wonder when he meets Elodin, he's got power. Now, we can always talk about Ilian and, that bloodline and everything, but to be able to practice within it, he doesn't fully understand it. And that's also what's so great about how Rothfuss decides to present this. When he's with the Adem, he's humbled to the effect of look, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And they're just explain. And then he tries to actually explain it, and they're like, so what is this? Wait, what is it? He tips his mind into something.
Spinning leaf.
So yeah, it is spinning leaf. Yeah. Where I just stop thinking. They're like, that's it. That's what you're doing. You're doing what you should be doing, and you're doing much better than what people that train for years do. So yeah, keep doing that. You're cheating that you're doing. Keep cheating.
Yeah.
It's great, man. I think this is the muscle memory that he utilizes then, that he's developing at this point. That's cool. I hadn't made the connection as deep as that. I like that. That's cool.
Probably one of the biggest parts that I wanted to talk about as far as this chapter goes is the mention of the Watchers, for one. When Haliax initially jumps in, Cinder's torment and Kavoth, and Haliax jumps in yo, fucking cool it. And he's like, you're no better than a Watcher. And so Watchers, one, it's not capitalized, so it's not a group. It doesn't sound like it's a group. But he says, you're no better than a Watcher. Sounds like he might be talking about, the Angels. Of all the groups that I've heard in the book, the only one that sounds like Watchers is the Angels. I mean, that's almost exactly the Scarpy's second story when he talks about Aleph offered Celatos and Telu and all these groups, they could become angels. And the reason Celatos turned him down was because he was like, I want to go get my fucking revenge. I want to stop the Chandrian. And he was like, no, if you become an angel, then you have to sit back. You can't judge past deeds. You can only judge what you see happen from here on out. And so that sounds like a watcher, like someone who is sitting on the sidelines and watching and judging. And so when he says, you're no better than a watcher, it sounds like he's talking about the angels. And it sounds like he's kind of got a disgust for these people because they're just sitting on the sidelines. They're not actively playing a part. And that's
it sounds like
who I think that it most sounds like. Go ahead.
Well, it sounds like that could also be who gets involved here, who prevents Cinder. Obviously, Cinder could be also have antagonism towards them because they're stopping his show, right?
Yeah.
It seems like that would be who gets in the way. At least that's what I'm kind of connecting there, unless there's another different version of Watchers. We haven't heard of anything other than angels.
And
I haven't heard of a dark angel.
And it would make sense too if it is the angels that showed up, because one, they just committed a horrific deed, so the angels would be showing up to judge, but they're able to kind of just fucking skirt out of the situation, get the fuck away. And if the angels are just kind of judging things as they go about, and they're not hunting down criminals like the Amyr, who seem to be on a mission to stop the Chandrian. Like, it doesn't seem like seems like nothing's stopping the Amyr. They're always on fucking mission. They have one single mission, and it is to stop the Chandrian, to get to fucking end them. Whereas the Angels seem to just kind of have a more, we're going to judge things as they happen. So, if you're like a Cinder type of character, it would make sense that you would look at these guys like they're a fucking annoyance. Like, they always fucking show up when we do our shit, and we got to fucking run away from them, but they're not hunting us down.
Yeah, that's what's interesting, though. I wonder what power they wield then. If they show up, what happens?
The fact that, like, Haliax says,
who
do I keep, who do I keep you safe from? The Singers, the Sythe, the Amyr. He doesn't say the Angels. So, like, when Haliax mentions the Watchers as almost like an annoyance, like they're annoying, makes me think that the Angels might be that annoyance factor rather than like someone that's like actively hunting them down, like the Amyr or the Sythe or the Singers.
So, then why would they need to flee? Did the Angels bring?
Because, just because you think, they're annoying, you got to run away from them when they show up, doesn't mean that they're not powerful. It's Telu.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder what that looks like. We don't know. I guess,
it definitely seemed like when whoever that was showed up.
Yeah, they didn't fuck around.
No, they got the hell out of there. But it's important to note that Kavoth said that he felt watched. So maybe they are the Watchers. I don't know how to correlate it other than that. But he does right after that call him or say that whoever was coming was watching.
Also, the other thing that makes me think it was probably the Angels that were showing up is because the Angels are described as like, otherworldly. They're not like just walking around like humans. They've been burned out of existence. They're on a different plane. Like Telu's like, I will join you and I will leave this world. And so it seems
more
like
evidence
that they
of
are
the multiverse, though.
Yeah. And it seems like they are like outside of this world, so it would make more sense like that Kavoth would feel their presence without seeing them. Whereas they see them, they look up and they see them, and they're like they come. But Kavoth, he doesn't see them; he just feels a presence, and so it would make sense that would be the Angels. Whereas like the Amyr, you would think it's fucking dudes running on a battlefield, running up, and you would just fucking see them. It would make more sense if it's the Angels were the Watchers and the Angels were the ones that showed up. That would make more sense to make the story consistently fit better.
It's also kind of interesting that this is probably, at least in my mind, this is probably the biggest leap in the books for readers. Like you have to like, you're kind of, Rothfuss is kind of testing the willingness of the reader to just buy in. You know what I'm saying? Because it is so like, what's there? What is it? Who is it? It's based on faith, sort of, like.
Not only that, like, after they show up, Haliax is like, come to me, and then they drift off like fucking sand.
Yeah, exactly. It's very like.
It's fantastic.
It's very fantastic. Yeah, it's the most fantastical, mystical thing that happens in the books. It is the biggest test of our, again, like our willingness to defy our own, I don't know.
But he earns it he earns it like because in the chapters preceding this, he painstakingly starts to explain sympathy to you. He starts to explain magic to you. So then you get a little fucking taste of fantastical magic, and he's earned it.
So I want to throw something out to you guys. Could it be that most people don't see the Chandrian, and because Kavoth is in his sleeping mind by the time he gets to the fire, that possibly that's why he can see the Chandrian. And by the time he is on the road, the King's Road, and comes across Cinder again, at that point, he's advanced enough to where, he can access his sleeping mind and see. My question is it possible
Yeah,
that
no,
they are
I
on that
got
other
what
plane?
you're saying, but no, I don't think that's the case because, tying it into what happens in the woods with the bandits and Cinder, like, definitely no, because Dan and Hespa and Martin and Tempe all see Cinder.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
definitely
and
not
it's
sleeping
also-
mind shit. But also, like, there's no shock that he sees them. There's no, like, holy shit, this kid's
From the
fucking got some
Chandrian.
major fucking power if he can
Well,
fucking see
yeah.
us.
Yeah,
That
well,
would
and
be like they would make a bigger deal. Like if they weren't supposed to be seen, they would make a bigger deal that he can see them, and they don't
also,
at all.
some of the main hints are the way Cinder looks and the way Haliax looks. So that also would be problematic, because that's what we can tie into how we know it's the Chandrian. It's visual. I mean, largely it's visual elements.
Well,
So
what he
it
was
doesn't seem
what
like that's
Fitz
a
was
thing.
what Fitz was saying was like that the average human
No, I hear
in
you, yeah.
Kavoth's shoes walking up would not see them. But
Yeah.
Kavoth is because he's behind, his sleeping mind is accessed. The only reason he's able to see him is because his sleeping mind. And I'm saying that wouldn't make sense because if they're not normally seen by the average Joe in that kind of situation where they drop down and kill everybody, if the average person can't see them in that, and they're getting fucking slaughtered and they don't see who's slaughtering them, well, then when Kavoth walks up and sees them, they would have made a fucking point of that. That would have been, they wouldn't have been having a conversation with them. It would have been like, how the fuck do you see us? No one can see us.
Yeah, I
that
get
makes
that. I think
They were so
that's-
nonchalant about it that it can't be that the average person has to be able to see him. Plus, the stories of the Chandrian and all their signs and all the fucking trauma they do.
That's what I was saying.
It wouldn't like spread out through time if no one could see them. It would be like there's these fucking horrific events where fucking people just like get fucking torn
We don't
apart.
know what happened.
No one's there.
Yeah.
Like he was just standing there, and then his body just split apart.
Yeah.
Like I don't get it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean, because
there's
literally their visual images are the signs. So yeah, there's some
jerks. They're jerks.
They're big. Yeah, they're big jerks, man. These guys has problems.
The other things we should mention, obviously we talk about these things a bunch, but we shouldn't skip it over in this chapter, is the groups that they fear. The Amyr, the Singers, and the Sythe. The Amyr we know, and reminder for the audience, when Scarpy tells his story, the second story he tells, Aleph, who is like the god of the world, offers all of the Ruach, who are like the Greek gods of the world. Aleph seems to be like Zeus among the Greek gods. And he's like, join me and become angels. Celatos turns him down because he wants to hunt the Chandrian. And so he forms a group and he calls it the Amyr, which Celatos ran Mir Terrennial and he formed the Amyr, Mir Terrennial, Amyr. So that's where that comes from. And so he forms Amyr. So that's one group that's hunting him, is Celatos and other Ruach, other historically extremely powerful people. The Sythe are the group that is defending the tree where the Cathay is at. They are the group that's described as when Bass says, if someone speaks to the Cathay, they will shoot that guy with an arrow from 200 meters. And if a crow lands on that dead guy's body, they will kill that fucking crow. And they will just leave all that shit to rot. They won't bury it or anything. They will fucking, anybody who talks to Sythe, they will kill him. And they will kill anybody he talks to. So that's the Sythe. They're the ones guarding, defending against people talking to the Sythe. The singers are more of a mystery, and we dive a little bit more into them in the next episode. So we'll leave that for the next episode. But the singers, could be a group or could be just people like Arliden singing songs. But we dive further into them in the next episode. So I'll leave that for then.
So the Amyr, the singers, and the Sythe, are basically the three things that are after the Chandrian.
Which is, I think, the real big piece of information beyond just those three groups is the fact that they don't say the angels.
Yeah.
I think that the fact that they left out the angels tells us something.
And they don't know that they need to fear Kvothe just yet.
No.
But they should.
Clearly don't.
Maybe he's the singers. Maybe he falls in with that group. Right?
In the dancers.
Oh, Shandy.
Oh, yeah.
That's good old Shandy.
Yep. That's gonna be what brings him down is Kvothe learns. He not only can play Shandy's dance, he learns Shandy's dance, and then that fucking ends him.
He's gonna lull the Chandrian in with a striptease. Is that what you're trying to say, Dan?
When he twerks, like the motion of the twerking, like it vibrates the air and explodes their fucking bodies.
Hypnotic twerking.
That's the most logical conclusion you can come to.
Yeah.
But, I think that's pretty much what I had. I mean, obviously then, like, there's not much to say after that. Like, he goes and finds his dead parents. He doesn't pass out. Like, Fitz fucked up the fucking recap. Like, he doesn't pass out. Like, he goes... His parents weren't in the wagon. He finds his parents, and then he goes back into the wagon, lights some candles, goes to sleep, wakes up, candles, it torch the place, and then he grabs the loot and fucking hits the road, and then he plays until his fingers bleed and passes out and goes behind the doors asleep.
I like to comprehend things my own way.
Yeah.
I add things where I want to make sense and
nice. Yeah.
It helps the story.
It's good for stories to...
No, so he didn't faint inside the wagon?
Own things.
And wake...
He went to sleep. I mean, yeah, you could say, like, he tried to dig graves for his parents and shit, and dug his fingers red, and then he went into their cabin and fell asleep.
What he says is, I lay in my parents' bed with the loot beside me. My mother's pillow smelled of her hair, of an embrace. I did not mean to sleep, but sleep took me. There's actually an Armenian idiom about sleep, where sleep takes you. Kunas danuma, I don't know how you say the middle word, but yeah, it's so when I came across it, I was like, that's Armo say that.
What does it mean?
It means sleep. My sleep is taking me. Kunas danuma. I don't know how to say. That's like uma.
Yeah.
Is that an idiom, or is that just someone saying they're sleepy?
This ended up getting you guys banned in a later episode.
But okay, yeah, and then
stupid things up.
And then we do get a piece of Kvothe growing up here, becoming after he wakes up, everything's burning, and he says, "What horror could a simple fire hold for me now?" As if he at this point he knows what real fear is, what real loss is. And then, I mean, that's what Tarbeen does to him as well. This is why when Ambrose is being a little prick, he didn't give a shit, right? That's why he goes right back at him. It's like, dude, I've seen my whole family murdered in front of me, basically. I've found my whole family dead, and I lived on the streets of Tarbeen. Fuck you, bro. Like, you are not a threat to me. Yeah. Again, he was wrong.
That's good symbolism there, too, Tim, that what kind of horror could a fire hold. Everything's been taken from him. Fire consumes things. Everything's been taken. There is nothing else. I like that.
And the other aspect of it is, though, like, he goes out into the woods with just the loot. Like, surely they would have had some money. Like, it wasn't like they were some fucking poor, podunk fucking troop. Like, clearly they would have had a treasure chest. Unless the Chandrian fucking stole it, and didn't seem like that. They fucking just kind of fucking drifted off like sand. Didn't seem like they were fucking, well, maybe Grey Dalcenti was fucking pocketed all their fucking gold, fucking busting cigs with fucking pockets full of gold.
Old Grey knew what he was doing.
He's just going around pulling money out of people's pockets while they're laying there dead. That's his other talent.
They're murdering everybody, and he's just fucking stacking cash. But it's interesting though that he just fucking like abandoned. You know, he had to have abandoned a massive amount of loot, because when he rescues the two girls from the fake root troop, like, he gives those supplies to the girls as like, this will make a great dowry, and you can fucking sell all this shit and make a bunch of money. Like, this is valuable stuff. Well, he wasn't in like some fucking poor Rue troop. He was in like the king of King Rue troops. So clearly, like, he walked away from a shitload of money and just abandoned it. And I mean, obviously he's not in that right state of mind, but he could have been in a much better situation had he. I mean, who knows? I mean, he's 12 years old. Like, so if he takes all that shit, he could just get fucking someone could just fucking rob him. And so maybe it goes worse for him if he takes all that stuff. But
well, I'll
seems
tell you
like
what
they
else.
would have had at least some gold or silver coins that he could have fucking took.
Had some gold and had some extra loot strings, huh?
Well,
yeah.
There's
He
also
probably set those all on fire.
Well, I've had a lot of people over the
idiot.
years. I've had a lot of people over the years tell me that you can't eat your gold. So it wouldn't have done him any good if those people are right?
Well, maybe they've never heard of colloidal gold.
Or you could use the gold to buy things.
One of the great
There's
things,
also that.
Yeah, one of the great things about money is you don't have to eat it. You can exchange it.
Yeah, and you buy stuff with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking awesome about money. It's my favorite thing about money is exchanging it for stuff.
I like taking the bills and just rubbing them, on my face and then like getting sick because they're really dirty. But it's fun. That's the utility of cash.
Yeah. The paper cuts are fucking sweet.
Or throw them at strippers. You can do that too.
Yeah, make it rain.
There you go. Yeah.
No, I meant like angrily. Like crumbled up real tight and throw it at their face.
That's what
make
it rain means.
That's why you want a big stack, but instead of like throwing them individually, you just take the big stack and boom, right on the bridge of the nose.
You're not fooling me. You're not having sex with any of us.
What?
Fitz just fucking dropped the bomb on why he doesn't like strip clubs.
Yeah,
he went in with
I'll tell you,
he went in with the wrong expectations. He thought he walked into a
ruse.
brothel and fucking didn't realize he walked into a fucking strip club.
Hey, these girls look like fun.
I don't know how you could take it any other way. You walk into this place with a.
She really seemed like she liked me, guys. I thought she liked me, but like,
hey,
when
guys.
I asked her out, she laughed in my face.
I love the idea that you stand up angrily like, they're all teases.
Don't believe it, guys. Don't believe them. They're lying.
That's not a drink. You're not buying her a drink.
Dude, I found out
this is all
she's
a
not.
scam.
I found out she's not even in college. She's not registered for classes.
There's no way she's going to UCLA. There's no way.
Man, not fooling me anymore.
Yeah, that was it for me on chapter 16.
Yeah.
All right, then. Well, let's move on to chapter 17. It's an interlude titled Autumn. In this chapter, Kvothe tries to play tough guy and reprimands Bast for feeling sympathy for Kvothe for what he's gone through. Kvothe goes to gather wood while Bast and Chronicler have a chat. They both apologize again for their earlier tiff. Outside, Kvothe loads firewood into a wheelbarrow and again starts to cry like a little bitch.
I don't have a ton to say on this on this chapter. There's not much that happens, obviously. I think, but there's one specific aspect of it that I think is pretty big to the overall story, which we touched on, is the fact that he just told the story of his parents getting massacred, which through 2 books, he does not tell that story to anybody else. He does not tell Will and Sim. When Denna is singing the song about Lanre and she paints him as a hero, the woman he is desperately in love with, he wants to fucking tell her what happened to his family, to explain why he can't appreciate her song, why he can't compliment her song. He's not able to let go of that secret. And even right before that chapter, he talks about like a secret that is just buried so deep that you can't release it. And so the secret of what happened to his family is it's buried so fucking deep that he can't fucking tell anybody. And then he just matter-of-factly tells them what happened. And then, like, when Bass is like, oh, Reshi, it's like, get the fuck out of here, man. It's no big deal, man. It happened a long time ago. Time heals all wounds, blah, blah, blah. And he just fucking walks out of there. Obviously, he's putting on airs, but he still told him. And it was not, he didn't, like, make a big fucking to-do about it. And he's not willing to tell anybody else. Like, anytime he even, like, thinks about telling him, he fucking pussies out. So it wasn't like, because a great difference is like when he talks about Denna later on, and he jumps out of the story and he just keeps, we're getting closer to the girl that's going to play a monumental part of the story. We're getting closer to her, and but she's like a deer that you don't want to fucking scare away, so you got to approach her quietly and softly. He doesn't do that with this story. He just fucking boom, boom, boom. We're partying it up. They're teaching me all this shit, and then boom, they're dead. It seems like he's got to have broken the ice before this moment. Like, he's got to break that ice. He's got to tell someone else this story. This cannot be the first time he's telling it, and then the first time he's telling it is chroniclers writing it in a book that anybody anywhere is going to be able to read. I would be shocked if this is the first time he's told this story.
Well, isn't there doesn't Bass talk to Chronicler about Kvothe having tried to write his story?
Yeah.
Isn't there a point where so maybe he wrote it, but I don't know.
I don't think
he definitely hasn't said.
But it does. There is a feeling that I get that when he tells the story, he's written in his mind, because he does do it matter of factly. He even says, "All right, let's just get this over with," or something along those lines. Where like I'm gonna tell it now, and let's be done with it. That sort of situation, which does also hint to me that I think he would have had to have told this story to someone prior to at least rip the Band-Aid off to where he can actually get through it emotionally.
The only way I could see that he did not, this is the first time he's retelling the story, is if he was like, I'm going to tell Chronicler this story, I'm going to get all this shit off my chest, and then I'm going to fucking cut his head off, and I'm going to burn this book and no one's ever going to fucking see it. Like, if he was like, there's no way this story's getting out of this room, then it would make sense that this is the first time he's telling this story. Otherwise, it does not make sense. He's got to break that ice. It cannot be that he's breaking the ice by telling the world what happened to him. He's had to have gotten his secret off his chest.
Yeah, in the other thing about it is he seamlessly tells the entire story, not just of his parents, but of his whole life up to this point, or up to the end of book 2. And I think it's because he's, at least a lot of it we know is because these are stories that he told, trying to, like, for instance, the story of Felurian, where he told the story in the bar afterwards with its flavor, and he knows how to put on a good story, and he does put on good stories. And most of these stories he has told before, and we know that.
Well, we know he loves, like, his heroic nature. He loves to hear a story. He loves to tell stories about how heroic he is. This is one story he does not tell anybody.
I think this story, if it's going to be told, is going to be either Ari or Denna. Those are the only people that I can think of that I can foresee him opening it up. Now, there could be other characters, but
I don't think he would tell Ari. The only reason I don't think he would tell Ari is because he looks at, like, Ari like he's her protector. So I don't think he would, like, dump that on her. I could definitely see Denna, because he would want to be able to explain to her why he is the way he is.
I think Denna makes the most sense.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of possibilities.
But I could also see like a Loden, or I think only a Loden out of all the masters, that would be the only one that would make sense. Is like he finally reaches out to one of the masters and tells them, like, what the Chandrian did to his family with his relationship as far as naming and all that kind of shit. He tells them about Felurian. Loden would seem to make sense. But it's hard to see very many characters. I don't think he would tell Will and Sim.
If he runs back into Abinthy.
He would 100% tell Abinthy. If Abinthy comes back in, he'll 100% tell Abinthy. Because Abinthy would ask, what happened to your parents? Where are your parents?
Yeah, he would have to tell them.
So I could see Abinthy coming back in, or Scarpy. Scarpy would be another one.
Maybe he goes back into the
Scarpy.
Fae?
So like Scarpy's so mysterious though. Why would he? I don't know.
The reason, like, not because, like, he trusts Scarpy and he would lean on him like his shoulder. It would be because Scarpy knows the true history of the world, and he would be like, hey, these fucking people you're telling stories about, they fucking murdered my family. And I need to know the truth about what's going on with the Chandrian. I need to know the truth about Haliax because he murdered my family. And so I could see him going to Scarpy.
Chance, did he?
Yeah, I could see him going to Scarpy and telling him what happened to his family in order to gain information. I could see him telling Abinthy, because Abinthy would be like, where are your parents? What happened to your parents? I could see him telling Loden, again, to gain information about the Chandrian.
Yeah.
And then Denna, I could see him saying it because he's trying to explain why he's broken. Outside of that, I can't think of anybody else like he would tell the story to. I think it's gotta be one of those four.
Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, well, what do we have coming up here, Dan?
Well, hey, hold on. So there's a couple other things I did want to point out that I thought were kind of interesting within the chapter. When we get a little piece of what sympathy feels like from Bast, which basically like getting kicked in the ball. Binding, yeah, sorry.
The binding of iron.
Yeah. Yeah. He said it was like getting kicked in the balls, but over your whole body. Which I thought was pretty interesting. Like no bruising, but just like awful, sickening feeling, just pain. but it's not like you're not wounded or anything.
Yeah, it's about the worst kind of thing you could think of, really.
Yeah. Yeah, like women talk about like getting fucking pregnant and going through birth. Have they ever been kicked in the balls? I don't think so.
Yeah, let alone a lifetime of getting kicked in the balls.
Yeah, I don't fucking think so.
You ever tried hanging a vital organ outside your body, ladies? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I was also going to say...
Have you ever sat down and hurt yourself really badly? Like, yeah, I don't think so. Pregnancies don't impress me at all, ladies.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I was gonna say, I mean, I carried these kids in my balls, until I put them in you.
Dude, I've been dumping out kids,
like millions of them,
dumping loads of kids out
every day,
dumping loads of kids. Fucking, it ain't no fucking thing. Why? I don't know why you guys are fucking making a big deal about this.
In fact, I enjoy it.
Man.
Yeah, it actually feels good. What's your guys' deal?
Yeah. It's one of the best things ever. What are you talking about? Fucking babies. Always gotta be emotional.
The other part that I think is a big hint, and we get this revealed later, so it's not like it's a cliffhanger or something, but Bast says to Chronicler, I was so excited when I heard who you were that he was going to tell his story. His mood's been so dark lately. There's nothing to shake him out of it, nothing to do but sit and brood. I'm sure that remembering the good times will. And then he goes on to like apologize and blah, blah, blah. So he kind of cuts him off. He cuts himself off, which I think does actually end up hinting at what ends up getting revealed, that he arranged this to begin with. Right? Yeah.
I also think it shows that Bast doesn't understand Kavoth's story. Because Kavoth seems pretty fucking clear that telling his story is like the worst thing fucking possible. Like he tells Chronicler when Chronicler first is like, I want to get your story. And he's like, what could possibly be worth the price of remembering? I don't remember the exact words, but it was something along those lines where he was like, what would be worth it? And Bast is over here like, fucking get him talking about the good old times. Fucking Kavoth.
Old days,
Kavoth's like, no, dude, you don't get it, man. My story is fucking tragic, man. It ends badly. And so, like,
it's great.
Telling my story is going to be awful.
Well, it's tremendous, too, and we talk about this, but Chronicler does such a great job of holding his story hostage. Like, this is what people, you can either have an influence over how they're going to look at you, or it's just going to be how, people think it is now.
Yeah, you're going to have old cop. You like the stories old cop tells? You think those are good? You think he's doing a good job with your story? You want that to be the fucking deal? Like, okay, I'll leave right now. Old cop can fucking tell your fucking story.
That is pretty good, because we have an example right there of this fucking guy who just so confident about what the story is and is not getting them right.
He's like, look, he gets jumped in an alley and he calls a demon and a demon starts eating babies.
It's because
what?
Kavoth.
No.
It's because Kavoth is a demon and he can summon up demons. And it's like, what the? No, bro. Like,
well, I think
Kavoth,
that might be a little closer.
We find out Kavoth, he gets all his power from his third ball. And you didn't even know he had a third ball until he meets the wizard.
Until Felorian sucks it out of him.
Fucking old Cobb. He's a great character. The only other aspect of it that I had on this chapter was when Kavoth goes out and he's fucking, chopping the wood, doing his. This is also a future episode thing. We get our first introduction of a lumberjack, which Tim doesn't think there's lumberjacks in the book, but we get one because Kavoth is being a lumberjack right now, fucking chopping wood.
Because he chops wood, he's a lumberjack?
Yeah. Yeah, so
Now,
actually,
speak
you
of
know what?
fighting.
It's that's one of the downsides of redoing these episodes too, because in the original episodes we talked about maybe Grey Dalcinti was a lumberjack, and he was chopping down wood to trap the family,
Yeah,
and
that
so
tree,
now
which
you
we
guys
didn't
are
even
going to lose
address.
that.
Well, we didn't even talk about the tree falling in this episode,
No.
which is when it happens.
No,
But
so
yeah.
yeah, we lost
So,
that. So
just forget
Yeah,
that.
the three white oak.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we had some in the original episode. We had some jokes about Grey Dalcinti being a lumberjack, and then Tim complained that there's no lumberjacks in the story, but Kavoth is a lumberjack in this chapter. He's cutting up some fucking firewood, and
I think what actually gets revealed is that rather than being a lumberjack, Kavoth is a robot. He's an automaton because as he continued to load the barrow, he moves slower and slower like a machine winding down.
Mm.
So there you go.
I was just learning how to love.
If that's all it takes, if all it takes is cutting wood to make you a lumberjack, well, then winding down apparently is all it takes to be a machine.
Yes, a lumberjack cuts wood. That's what lumberjacks do. If you cut wood, you're a lumberjack.
Chop. They can also chop and still be a lumberjack.
But the interesting thing about it is that he was surprised it was a mild autumn afternoon rather than the springtime forest of his story. So that shows you the fact that he mentions that he was surprised. It shows you that he's getting lost in his story, and that I think that's the biggest hint that him telling his story is important. That maybe Chronicler is there to get him to tell a story because that will wake him up. The fact that he is like surprised that he's not in spring anymore. He's in autumn. He's like, what the fuck? Where's spring? It's fucking autumn. Like he got so lost in telling his story. And we get another example of that. We get another example.
Where's spring? Where's spring?
Yeah.
Is that what it feels like?
Yeah.
You just walk outside.
Yeah.
Hey, where'd spring go?
Yeah. Well, if you thought it was spring,
where's all the
bunnies? Out and it's fucking all the fucking leaves are dying. It's getting cold.
Where's
out.
all the
You're like, what the
where's
fuck
all the
happened?
bunnies?
Spring is
Where's
awesome. Autumn.
Where's all the
sucks
bunnies and
balls.
butterflies? The bunnies, butterflies, and flowers. Where'd they all go?
Hey, you guys, quit playing football. What are you doing?
It's fucking baseball season. But the other time that he has like a reaction like that is when the guys come into the bar and they rob him, and it's right after he's telling the story about hanging out with the Dim and learning fighting skills, and then he tries the fighting skills and he's like, I forgot who I was for a second. It's very similar thing. It's almost the same exact thing, except for instead of the seasons, it's the fighting skills. And so he gets lost in telling the story. And I think that Bast is not wrong that telling his story is important. And I think it lends credence to that there's something about telling his story that's important, because he does get lost in it. He loses track of the seasons. He thinks he still has those fighting skills. And I think it's important. I don't think that there's clues in both books that are almost identical to him getting lost in the story. I don't think that Rothfuss just happenstance put them in there. I think that those are clues that telling his story is important.
Yeah, I and that ties in nicely with what Scarpy does for him in Tarbeen. I think that makes a lot of sense. And that's the power of stories, man. I mean, that's how we get revealed what the Chandrian is. That's how we can piece together so many things in this world. It's the stories are what hold it all together. So yeah, I think that actually makes a lot of sense.
The only other aspect of it is he completely loses my respect. Like he
because he cries
does the most unheroic thing you can do and starts crying. like a little fucking baby.
After just remembering his whole family dead in front of him, that's not.
What, it was like, what, 12 years ago? Like, dude, get the fuck over it. Fucking move on.
I think that's what he's trying to do.
Grow up, Kvothe.
I think that's also what he's trying to do.
Fucking baby.
I think this is what growing up looks like.
You barely even knew those people.
Jesus.
He knew him, yeah. He knew him for 12 years. Like, okay.
That's so ridiculous. I've had dogs that long. I mean, come on, bro.
Crying over spilled milk.
That is so insensitive. Yeah.
Well, what do we have coming up, Dan?
Coming up, we have Kvothe in the woods. So we get the 4 doors. He's going to explain those. We're going to get his dream. There's a lot of important stuff in his dream. Then we're going to get him playing his lute and some kind of magical element to that, it seems. Then he heads to Tarbean, gets jumped by Pike's gang. Tarbean? Yep. Gets jumped by Pike's gang. Then he's going to meet Trappist, and I think we're even going to get into Trappist. Yeah, we're going to get into Trappist telling the story of Minda and Imperial.
Jeez.
We're gonna get pretty far. We get into a number of chapters. I think we go through like 18 through 23 or so in episode 7.
That's a lot. That's a lot of like really important things. Dude, he meets Denna.
No,
right?
Not
nope.
Yet.
What do you mean?
He does not meet Denna. He meets Denna on episode 9.
He doesn't meet Denna till he leaves Tarbean.
Correct. Like, we get Trappist's story, then we still, like in episode 8, we're going to go through Scarpy's stories. And then episode 9 is when he meets Denna.
Yeah, that's right.
A couple good episodes coming up, though, with all that is him learn how to play the lute in the woods, like Master. And then also Scarpy's stories are huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Ton of good stuff. Like Trappist's story is, we're going to dive deep into that. And we got some good stuff. Got some great Dalcinti stuff. I'm going to really flesh him out and fucking make him a little more badass. You're going to get you're going to hear about a hidden slave trade. There's a lot of good stuff in episode 7.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, come back for episode 7, guys. We'll talk to you then.
All right. Peace out.
That's it.